Hello, I'm Peter Davison, and welcome to NerdVsWorld.
Marvellous. Thank you very, very much, sir.
Hello and welcome back to NerdVsWorld, the League of Extraordinary Nerds. I'm Brendan.
I'm Spindles.
And I'm Ady.
And we are very lucky today to be joined by Mr. Jonathan Green.
Hello.
Hello, sir.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
Quite all right. Thank you very much for coming up, sir. So we're just all surrounded by nerdy things. Ady's just got back from Japan and brought us a ton of Star Wars goodies and Darth Vader chopsticks.
Very cool.
I have a set of Darth Maul chopsticks that actually magnetise together into his double-ended lightsaber. So if I'm a bit quiet this episode, it's because I'm just sat in the corner playing with my chopsticks.
Playing with his lightsaber. And that isn't a euphemism.
Oh, dear.
Off to a flying start.
As always.
Okay, so this week.
As usual, any stuff that people have noticed in the news or in general?
Nothing that comes
You've
to
been kind
mind.
of absent, haven't you?
I have been kind of absent, yeah, with 2 weeks in Japan. So unfortunately, I've been a bit out of the loop, and I've only had the last sort of 24, 48 hours to get up to date, really, and
Bring
get
back
up to
in
date with
gear.
action. Yeah.
Cool. Well, I mean, I've seen a few bits and bobs because there was the Empire Awards was on this week, which I think, in my opinion, has redressed a few of the the travesties that took place at the Oscars this year.
But does anybody take the Oscars seriously anymore, other than Hollywood?
No, I think Hollywood. I think we take it seriously just because it's so annoying.
Oh, okay.
It's one of those things that you can just sit and pick apart.
It's a good
and
source of vitriol.
Start ranting about. Did you listen to Kevin Smith's Oscar show that he did with Jen Swalbach?
I didn't actually. No.
Yeah, because normally they do a podcast of the Oscars or whatever because it's just round the corner from where they live. But this time apparently they couldn't work out how to put the closed captions on the TV, so they had to keep just recording bits in the advert breaks. So it's a bit kind of staccato put together, but it's fun to listen to. But no, very, very happy with Empire Awards. Skyfall getting some good recognition.
Jennifer Lawrence again getting something.
Yes, yeah, indeed.
Yeah.
And,
I think there should be a feature on this show of who has Brendan fallen in love with this week. Because it is someone new every week.
Is it still her?
It's still Jennifer Lawrence, yeah.
Right, okay,
Not April O'Neil.
No. For some reason, the whole Megan Fox being announced as being cast as April O'Neil kind of ruined it for me.
Oh.
Yeah, because it kind of made the reboot seem more real, and I don't ever want it to happen.
But you can get Lego Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles now, can't you? Or it's forthcoming.
Yeah, well, I know there's definitely a whole load of new toys because I've seen them in the window of the Entertainer.
Yes.
So there's definitely new toys on the go.
There's definitely Lego because my son's got his Lego Club magazine and he was very excitedly pointing it out.
Megan's had hers, which I haven't read that yet. So I'll have a look. Well, yeah, but they've done something weird now. I don't know if you noticed. Well, you may not have noticed, but they've started giving girls and boys different Lego magazines now.
Oh no!
There used to be a Lego magazine, and now they've got one that's kind of slightly tilted towards girls and one that's slightly tilted towards boys. Because they sent a letter out with Megan's going, "We're going to try this new magazine, but if you want the old one, then that's fine. Just let us know and we'll send you that one." Because they've got like Lego Friends and stuff, which is basically Lego but more
It's pink.
Yeah,
And it's done far better than they're expecting. It's really boosted their sales apparently.
yeah.
So hopefully that means we get more things like Marvel superheroes and.
Well,
and more
absolutely, yeah,
Batman.
because all the Marvel and DC Lego stuff's amazing. I remember seeing all that when we were in the big Lego store when we went to Florida, in the Disney store in there. There was just huge displays of DC and Marvel Lego.
Yeah.
Genius.
My son's holding out for Arkham Asylum. So it's got all the different
Yes.
references like Mr. Freeze's cell and things
Yeah,
like that.
they're basing it more on the game rather than the books and graphic
Yeah.
novels, though. It's certainly how it's looked on some of the online stuff. They're definitely going towards the online sort of darker gaming genre of it. But still, it looks pretty good.
Yeah, I just bought a Lego DVD, which I just randomly went into Tesco's to buy some
Do they
headphones
fit in
the
the
other day.
DVD players?
I've yet to try it.
You've got to get a
I
special
will let you
A
know.
Lego Technic DVD player.
But there was a Star Wars Lego DVD that
Oh, yes.
it's
Yes, I've
called
seen
The
that.
Empire Strikes Out, and it's like a 20-minute animation of like following the story of Empire Strikes Back, but with a few weird things. Like apparently Darth Maul's still in it and ends up having a fight with Darth Vader, and Luke's trying to train to be a Jedi, but everybody knows who he is. He's trying to stay secret, but he's the planet blower upper, so everyone knows who he is. It's all a bit weird.
Follow that, J.J. Abrams.
Yeah.
Sounds quite cool.
Absolutely. I mean, I love all the cutscenes in the Lego Star
Yes.
Wars games. I would just sit and watch them strung together for an entire evening. I think there was a little brief article on Digital Spy the other day chatting with J.J. Abrams, who's giving basically nothing away at the moment. He's
Funny
like,
enough.
Yeah.
That's not like him at all.
Well, indeed. It's like, yeah, if you've seen his films, he still gives nothing away.
I've seen like the new Star Trek Into Darkness trailer, and I still haven't got a clue what it's about, but I'm definitely going to say it.
Yeah.
The trailer looks great, and I loved the trailer, but I'm kind of starting to be concerned because it just looks like a generic action film in space. It doesn't look like a Star Trek film anymore. There's no sense of exploration. If it wasn't for the fact that it's got the characters, Kirk and Spock and Bones, I think it could be anything.
Okay.
So that's kind of getting to be a bit of a worry. In much the same way, the Terminator Salvation, for example, was a great action film.
But it
wasn't
shouldn't
a
have been
brilliant
part of the Terminator franchise. Yeah. Well, I don't think that was ever intended to be, was it? Because it was supposed to be a completely different character. But then I think when they got Christian Bale on board for it, he was like, "No, I've got to be John Connor. Otherwise, just not doing it." And so I think they had to then rewrite it so it was John Connor, which is. I think it would have worked better as an action movie set within the Terminator universe.
Yeah, I'm still looking forward to Star Trek Into Darkness, and I'm sure I'll still love it, and I'm going to see it multiple times.
Well, they've recently released the game, haven't they? Or it's about to be released.
I think they've just released a PC game for it, yeah.
Because that's unusual in that they've decided not to do the game of the movie. They've done the story that fits between the two Star Trek
Which
films.
I think is great, and that
they
kind
bring
of
back-
builds the anticipation for it. I think that's a fantastic move on their part.
And the enemy are the Gorn, who obviously only appeared in, is it Arena, in the original series, which is, but always appeared, I think it was like one of the stills behind the credits. So it's actually almost every episode.
I know the Gorn well, playing Star Trek Online.
Oh, I see.
I come up against the Gorn a lot, sir.
But I know they've got various different casts and different types of Gorn throughout.
Yeah.
It's quite
Ones that pick up rocks and throw them at you. Yeah. Sorry, no, I play far too much Star Trek Online. Well, they're just releasing a new factions, because I mean, up until now you could only play either Federation or Klingon, and they're just adding a Romulan faction now, so that's being released in May as a new playable faction.
They're releasing a new faction for the Star Wars Online as well, for Old Republic.
All right.
They're releasing the Hutts. There's an expansion called The Rise of the Hutts. I'm not sure if it's a playable faction, but it's a third member of struggling for the galaxy, along with the Republic and the Empire. So,
Cool.
they're going to have Hutts in exosuits.
Yeah, well, I was going to say they're not particularly mobile, are they?
No.
You won't be doing much melee combat.
No.
No.
Short of maybe flattening people from high above.
Yeah.
As they just perch out in a PvP environment on a ledge, waiting for somebody to come underneath you.
Camp them.
Micro skiff expansions.
Gaming news.
Yeah. That's all I saw in terms of game news this week.
I'm sure I've seen a lot more, but my brain's gone blank. Well, because there was the Independent Game Awards things. I think I sent you a link through for that. Did you have a look at it?
Yeah,
Quite a few.
Hotline Miami, did I get that one something?
Yeah.
FTL did, obviously.
Yes, well, yeah, FTLs.
And Super Hexagon.
Yes.
That game
Which I
is
do have Super Hexagon, and that's hard.
brutal.
That is a hard game. I don't know if have you ever seen the Humble bundles that they sell for Android or whatever?
No.
They're basically what they do is a bunch of indie developers, they sell bundles of games for whatever you want to pay for them, and the DRM free, and so you can play them on either Windows, Linux, or your mobile platforms.
Right.
And if you pay over the kind of average cost for the bundle, you tend to get extra games and stuff on it. But there's been loads of cool stuff in there. Like, have you ever played Machinarium?
No.
It's just like this little weird robot thing that goes with an adventure game, and it can either stretch really tall or go really small and just goes around and picks up objects. It's like a point-and-click adventure game. A mental little robots. Very, very cool.
Because they've recently had PAX East in Boston just come to an end?
Yeah, essentially, it's
Sort of
just
3
finished.
days or something
Yeah.
of it. And,
Yeah.
I know there's a huge indie scene there. I think they have like an indie booth, so all these small developers get some clout.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the guys from Penny Arcade that run it, isn't it?
Yeah.
I think World of Goo got. Well, there's definitely a screenshot from World of Goo in there, which is a great game.
Well, it's because there's a company I've done some work for, Tin Man Games, who have developed gamebook apps, and they've recently had their Fighting Fantasy franchise. So I think they're pushing, Blood of the Zombies, which was the 30th anniversary title last year, and they've done Steve Jackson's House of Hell.
Oh, okay.
And I think forthcoming is Forest of Doom, so any
Forest
old
of
school gamers out there.
Forest of Doom, I
Yes.
remember that.
Yes, I was actually flicking through that going,
Is that book 3 or 4?
3.
3.
yeah, and I was going, I've got all these, I've got them in my parents' attic somewhere, all my original Fighting Fantasy books that I used to do. I was like, oh yeah, that's brilliant.
So they were saying last week that was probably my first exposure to role-playing games.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Was it Warlock of Firetop Mountain?
Yes.
Yep.
Citadel of Chaos?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Forest of Doom, what was it for?
Forest of Doom.
Was it Freedom Fighters? What's the
Star Trek Traveller.
Starship
Traveller.
Starship
Star Trek Traveller.
Starship Traveller.
No, crossing our genres.
Actually, for some reason I thought that was a bit later on. I thought it was around 9, but yeah.
It wasn't as good. That was
No, it wasn't. No.
They were in our library.
City
Our
of
library in
Thieves,
Droitwich
Death Trap
had them.
Dungeon.
Yes, I've got that one.
Death Trap Dungeon made the bestseller list in the Times for Adult books as well. I think they sold like 500,000 copies or something, and
That's slandy.
me.
which is quite insane.
It is.
Because I've bought the gamebook game app that you've done. I've not played it yet because it's kind of hard.
It sounds like a very unsubtle plug, doesn't
Well,
it?
no, it's not. I actually haven't. Just haven't got around to playing it, but it's because it
The
looks like
plugging
it's
is going to get
kind
much more blatant later on.
Yes, the plugs will
We'll
be
get
thick
there.
and
Yeah,
fast.
we'll get there later.
But it looks like it's kind of half Final Fantasy and half kind of like Magic with cards.
Magic the Gathering. Yeah.
Yeah. I've done one for a different developer, which is Warlock's Bounty.
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one,
That's the one I bought.
That's had a remix, re-release. So it is. Yeah, the guys developed the whole combat system using like a Magic card system, but within kind of a Fighting Fantasy game book. So I wrote the content. It was a bit of a weird one actually because it was kind of developed the wrong way round, should we say, in that he'd got some great ideas he wanted to put in, and he commissioned some artwork, and then it was like, now we need a story to fit it all to. So
Not an easy one to.
no, so he worked it. But
Retrofitting it.
Yeah.
it was an interesting challenge. But but I've done these other ones which don't have the card element. They still have like dice rolling, but
Right.
shaking your Android or
Shake your Android. That's not a euphemism either. Cool. Other news was, of course, the Sun breaking the story that apparently the Doctor's going to be regenerating at Christmas.
Again.
Again.
Yeah.
Don't they do that every year?
Yeah, they do.
I'm sorry, but I call bullshit on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I know the BBC have been fairly quick to downplay it, but I don't know. I mean, he's got to that point. He's done what, 3? Well, this will be the end of his 4th season, is it, or is it the end of his 3rd? I
Oh,
can't remember now.
So we.
hang on, I have to think back.
This is the end of his 3rd season because it's been split. It's because it's been off air for
Yes.
so
Yeah,
long
that's
that
right,
it feels
yeah.
like
It
longer.
gets
But I think this is the end of his
confusing.
3rd season.
This
Yeah.
is 7B, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it
Is
is.
that right?
Yeah.
Since the
Yeah.
reboot.
So yeah, this is effectively his 3rd season, and that's kind of that. It seems to be becoming the unwritten rule amongst them now that it's you do 3 seasons and then
Yeah.
Die.
you go.
Well, then, because of Moffat is such a fan, and all the references in the Christmas one to like the original Abominable Snowman and
Yeah.
the Web of Fear
Yeah.
and with the tube map on the box, that was all
Absolutely.
brilliant. So I keep thinking, is he going to reference the Valiard and the whole?
This is
Yes.
because we're getting dangerously close to that now.
Yeah, because they have referenced some really obscure stuff, including things which they've made canon, which were in the Missing Adventures when it wasn't on TV. Virgin put the books out, so
Yeah. Oh, the Virgin New Adventures ones. Yeah.
yeah, because things like Human Nature
Yeah.
was first written for that, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, because I mean the whole Valiard thing is it depends whether they're going to try and use the River Song blag of her supposedly giving her regenerations to him, and does
Right,
that
yeah.
kind of mess up the whole thing or not? Or
And also, I guess with the whole big reboot of the universe, it's kind of he can keep what he wants and
Yeah.
get lots of new stuff, can't he?
Yeah.
so I mean I'm not sure whether they're going to stick hard and fast with the rule of the 13 regenerations, but the Valiard thing was very much that was supposed to be the 13th regeneration. from was it Trial of the Time Lord? No.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I don't know. We'll see. But I mean, it's just everything in the news is every day. It's like stuff for the 50th, stuff for the 50th. I just can't wait. But of course, it's back on Saturday night anyway. So
It is. Yeah, looking forward to that.
I'm very much looking
enough.
forward to it. Unfortunately, I'm going to be missing the tabletop game because that's the tabletop day because that's on Saturday. And not only do I have my parents and my brother-in-law around, but Doctor Who's on.
Yeah. I'm just going to have to wait and watch it on the iPlayer because I'm going to be hosting an event on the Saturday, so I'm going to watch it.
Yes, because it's International
Tabletop Day. Playing board games.
You ever watched Tabletop?
I haven't. It's
Very,
Will
very
Wheaton,
good.
though, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's Will Wheaton, yeah.
And I have heard about it, so now I'm thinking I should probably get some of the old games out for the kids.
Yeah, do
sure.
watch it. It's great
This
because
weekend.
they're celebrating a year of doing tabletop now because it's brilliant. They literally just film them playing games and explain how the rules work and stuff. And
Yeah.
they kind of it's like any kind of game show where they kind of pause and have interviews with people halfway through, going like, how do you think it's going? And they do it with stuff like Munchkin and Settlers of Catan and things like that.
And Small World, which is my favourite one, I think. I've played that game so many times since watching that episode. It's brilliant. But we're hosting an event in Worcester at the St Swithin's Institute. Details will be on the blog description. And I think I'll be hosting 2 games and filming it, doing film playthroughs.
And interviewing people
Yeah,
for
and
podcasts.
interviewing
You're going to be a
people.
busy dude.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think about 4:30 or 5 o'clock, I'm not sure yet, I haven't tied down a time, we'll be playing Munchkin Quest,
Awesome.
which is the logical next step for Munchkin, taking it from a card game and using the old Warhammer Quest sort of idea of a tiled dungeon that you create the tiles for. I had to play that the weekend as a trial run. It's very fun. It's an awful lot of fun. And then after that, Settlers of Catan. I think we're playing that from 6 o'clock onwards.
Just normal settlers, or
Just normal.
breaking out the Star Wars settlers?
Just the normal Settlers and just the single game. None of the expansions. The expansions are very, very cool, but there's a surefire to win if you play. I think it's Knights of Catan. That's just make sure you have forest tiles on your cities because they produce the paper commodity. And if you have enough city improvements, that paper commodity can be used to buy any resource when you don't roll a resource on your turn. So essentially, you can just power game all the way through.
There you go, folks.
Cheats.
Board game cheats.
You heard it here first.
So yeah, it should be fun. Lots of interviews, and filming as well.
Cool.
Doing my thing.
Have fun, Seth. Apologies, I can't be there. I did really want to be there, and I was coming up with all sorts of wonderful plans for getting away from the house, but unfortunately Doctor Who sealed the deal and I'm not going anywhere.
Okay, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I can forgive you that.
Well, Stephen Moffat was talking about the history of Doctor Who that's going to be on as part of the anniversary, isn't it? Is it Mark Gatiss?
That's Mark Gatiss.
The Adventures in Space and Time,
Yeah.
the biopic thingy.
And apparently he was saying if you know nothing of the history of Doctor Who, you'll be amazed. And if you know about the history of Doctor Who, it'll make you cry.
Ooh.
So, intriguing. He's not bad at sort of giving the hints, but he's not quite the showman that Russell T was.
No.
In
No,
that sense, you feel he's got
Russell
really
T
got to put
Davies
the
is
effort
quite
in.
a bit more flamboyant and
Because I saw some interview where somebody said to him, "So what's it been like, working on Doctor Who? That came out the 50th anniversary and Sherlock Series 3," and he went, "Hell." And then he went, "But obviously hell in a lovely way." And then he kind of switched on his, "I've got to be Mr. Personality and be very nice and enthusiastic about this."
I think he's got to get the hang of conclusions as well, of ending a series, because I haven't been a fan of his 2-season endings so far.
No?
The Pandorica seemed like the Bill and Ted ending for me, which is like when Bill and Ted are on stage and they're caught in the cage, and they realise that, we must get out of this, so there must be a key somewhere, so in the future we'll go back and put the key there. Oh, look, there's the key.
Right, yeah.
That was, to me, essentially how the Doctor got out of the Pandorica.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It was essentially, he's the Doctor, he will get out eventually, so he might as well get out now.
That all gets horribly cyclical, as Bill and Ted was effectively a parody of Doctor Who, and it all goes wrong.
Indeed.
And then the finale,
The Impossible Astronaut.
The Impossible Astronaut,
Yeah.
I wasn't overly happy with that ending. I feel like the Scooby-Doo ending. Let's do it again. But
Also, correct me if I'm wrong, but we still haven't resolved about the TARDIS exploding, have we?
No.
Because I'll crack in time. I thought to begin with when he was flying the Pandora off into the exploding TARDIS, but that still feels like that's a plot line to be resolved or swept under the carpet or carry on with
it feels to me like that's been very much swept under the carpet, and that they've kind of gone, we've kind of done that.
Because also the whole bit with Prisoner Zero, Silence Will Fall, and you've got things like in the Vampires of Venice, which I didn't particularly enjoy, but at the end there is that sort of hint of you can hear there's nothing. I loved all that. And then the silence where, Edward Munch's scream, except they're not, they're kind of a cult, and then it all just became a bit, So... I wonder how much he plans ahead, or if he just thinks I'll put this in and this will sound quite cool.
Well, obviously some of the stuff he's had since the outset. The whole River Song thing was obviously there from the very start.
And that makes sense in its own way. I know people say, I don't understand how that works, but it makes perfect sense. They're just travelling backwards.
It's basically the time traveller's wife the other way around.
Yeah. So that I don't have a problem with. But it's Doctor Who, so I still love it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely, yeah.
Absolutely.
Got to be the one I'm waiting for with bated breath is the Cybermen episode.
Yes.
Neil Gaiman's episode.
With the redesigned Cybermen. They're not Cybermen, are they?
No, apparently not, no. So I have to see what he does with them, apparently. He's making them scary again.
Good. Warwick Davis is in that one as well, isn't he?
Yes.
There's one called Journey to the Centre of the TARDIS, which I'll be intrigued to see. Because
I will, because I'd like to see more TARDIS.
Yeah.
Well, years and years ago, I tried pitching for the Virgin New Adventures, and my story was called Ikalpamos, and a big part of the whole story was it was set within the TARDIS, because as somebody else said to me, surely when you go into TARDIS it's almost like an infinite city. I think it's described in one of the books as this. So the Doctor should theoretically be able to open a door and there's like a meadow or a lake and he should be able to sail ships and all, because it is just so vast inside its own separate dimension. So I was kind of playing on that. So it had things going wrong, it almost getting infested by a virus. So you had this kind of weird cathedral in the middle, and you also had this grey lady, which is bizarre because then they had Idris. So that's something I was toying with about 20 years ago.
Wow. So I've got to admit, one of my favourite sort of classic Doctor Who episodes is The Edge of Destruction, which is the one that is set just in the TARDIS. It's a 2-episode William Hartnell one, and that's the first kind of hint that the TARDIS is more than just a box that travels through time, because it's trying to warn them that the kind of reset button is stuck, and that they're travelling way beyond the kind of end or the beginning of time.
And I liked it in the past, in the old series, when they used to have like the secondary control room and things. That's kind of revisited, wasn't it?
Yeah.
With the Doctor's wife.
Yes.
Where they find, when they walked into the Eccleston set, that was quite cool.
Yes. Yeah, that was very good. But yeah, because there's the whole Cloister Bell thing, and
which you still hear. They don't make it as clear, because you used to have the Doctor, when it was Peter Davison, he sat in the cloister, didn't he?
Yep.
With the ivy, and you heard birdsong and things. And
absolutely.
You were aware that was all inside the TARDIS.
And because there was also some references back to the Zero Room again.
Yes.
In the recent.
Yeah. And you got the odd snippet, didn't you? When David Tennant sorted out his costume, you saw his wardrobe, which was kind of this massive spiralling room, which was quite nice.
I think the one I really liked it in was in the Doctor Who movie with Sylvester McCoy in his little drawing room, which I thought was really nice.
When he was reading, was it Alice in Wonderland?
Yeah.
So I like that, because you think, if you are effectively the master of time and space and you've been around for hundreds of years, you would read all the classics, and then you think, what else shall I read? You'd read the most obscure stuff.
Definitely.
You've written in the Doctor Who universe, haven't you?
I have. I've been very lucky. Yeah, I've written a couple of books and quite a lot of an annual. but yes, I've written for the 10th Doctor, and that was an adventure game book, and that was meant to feature Donna. It was commissioned for sort of the next round. So I got the opportunity to actually read one of the scripts before it went on air. And then for one reason or another, the meeting, it couldn't happen. We had to reschedule it. And then by that point, they decided they were changing the publishing schedule. So they said, we like your story, but can you rewrite it to have Martha in it? Which obviously I'd seen, so I never actually got to read the script beforehand. But then I've written one also featuring, which is, they call it a chapter book, because it's basically a kid's novel.
Okay.
But features, the Doctor, 11th Doctor and Rory and Amy, and a bunch of Victorians, or are they, and dinosaurs. Because I sat down, basically I was invited to picture this series, and they said we want it to appeal to children sort of upper primary, so sort of 7 to 12, ideally boys. So one of them was set within the 1966 World Cup. And they said, whatever boys like. So I thought, well, what do I like? Because I was just the same as when I was 7 years old. So I thought, and I was trying to be clever, I thought, they might do the odd dinosaur, they won't do lots of dinosaurs. And I thought, they'll never film anything on a pirate ship. So I sent this idea off, and they said, yeah, we love it, blah, blah, blah. Because it was meant to be, and this was before Pirates of the Caribbean 4 came out, I had Blackbeard searching for the Fountain of Youth, admittedly borrowed from On Stranger Tides, because I'd read the book, but then meets the Doctor and a bunch of dinosaurs. But they wrote back saying, yeah, we love it, but you can't have pirates. So, because of the whole Curse of the Black Spot.
Or dinosaurs on a spaceship.
Well, but that came later, so I managed to get the dinosaurs in there. But so, yeah, I had to move it to Victorian. So I've basically, the first part is an homage to King Kong now, because there is a tramp steamer called the Venture, which I got away with. Nice. So, yeah, so instead it's a bunch of Victorians looking for the Fountain of Youth, and then turns into Jurassic Park for a bit.
Cool. Were you approached at all about the series of the children's novels that they're releasing for Doctor Who? Because they're doing the one...
No, not for this lot. I did ask my editor, but by the time I asked, they were already all booked up.
They're already booked.
But never say never. There might be some more in the future.
Yeah.
Certainly if they ask, I always say yes, because it's like, how can you not?
Yeah, absolutely.
Which is for the right Doctor Who.
I'm still desperate to read that Nameless City, which is the Doctor Who Cthulhu crossover.
Brilliant, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, I'd quite like to see that one.
Yeah, because I got an extract of it that I read out on the last podcast. Was it the last one or the one before?
I think it was like the second podcast, wasn't it?
It was a while ago. I think it was like February's.
Yeah.
So Cthulhu references go back a long way, don't they? Because I know they made them more explicit with the New Adventures, because I think they do talk about the old ones, and when you talk about the sort of space vampires. But in the Seventh Doctor, was it The Greatest Show on Earth?
Yeah.
With the whole circus and the gods of Ragnarok, that's implied. That
Indeed.
It is, yeah.
I just felt there was an implication there in demons as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that one is it's a second Doctor and Jamie story where they find the Necronomicon apparently.
That was one you brought up with the Necronomicon. Yeah.
It does look like a lot of fun.
Yeah.
That does sound cool, because it's like, if you had anything like versus Cthulhu or with the twist of Cthulhu, it's like you can't really go wrong. Because there's a project I'm planning for at some point in the future, and I want to do a retelling of Beowulf as an adventure game book.
Right.
So people, because obviously it's quite hard now, having had the Gaiman movie, which retells the story in its own way, which I think, the first time I saw it I wasn't too sure of it, but the more I've watched it, the more I love it, and I think it's very clever.
Yeah.
I love the whole bit with Grendel's mother, is this shape-shifting demon? And, but obviously it changed the story quite dramatically, so trying to do something after that, it's got such a legacy behind it. So I was trying to think, how do you make Grendel different? And I've decided, because originally they're semi-aquatic, they live under a lake, it's implied that it's the bottom of the lake, and that's what I want to do, is give the twist that basically Grendel and his mother, because they also mention the swimming race at the start with sea monsters and bring in the whole Dagon and
deep ones.
Yeah, basically.
My favourite Cthulhu
That'd be my
beasties.
One with the Hounds of Tinderloss.
They're very good. They're obtuse angled rooms.
Yeah. Non-Euclidean geometry.
Yeah. Some good stuff. Were you ever a role player?
I had a phase, because I have to say, we've mentioned already Fighting Fancy sort of being the gateway drug.
Yeah,
that was
absolutely.
definitely for me, because my parents, they're unknown to them, but equally, it did sort of the whole Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, Games Workshop was founded on having the exclusive license to distribute them in Europe, out of a bedsit, I think it was, in Hammersmith. And for a lot of people, it was they'd read Fighting Fancy and then they'd get into Dungeons and Dragons. And I was an only child, so it was the classic, what do you do? Oh, I'll read this to myself, or I can still do a role-playing game by myself.
Yeah.
And I did have some friends who were into D&D, and I loved reading the source books for the ideas. And then this poor guy, I mean, we obviously badgered him into doing it. None of us wanted to DM it because we wanted to play it.
Yeah.
And he was rubbish at it. And it was kind of like, you take your +4 sword, you roll, and it's like, oh. So it kind of took all the drama out of it when you could read a passage in a book saying, you heft your mighty weapon, which is not a euphemism. Or might be. So, I didn't really get massively into traditional RPGs. It was kind of the game books, and it's stuck.
I myself followed that sort of suit because my brother handed me down his Fighting Fantasy novels, and I was reading those while he was off with his mates playing Dungeons and Dragons. When I went to join in, they were all like, well, we're all bored of this now, and they kind of packed it in at the time, so I never really got into it massively. myself, so I still continue on with the type of books that I read as well. Is still those sort of fantasy novels and things like that I will get drawn in, and they have to be a very, very good one for me to read. I find it very difficult to concentrate on something like that.
I do like some RPG video games as well, but again, that's still an element of it. It's like playing a game book because playing by yourself. But the Batman Arkham verse games,
Knights of the Old Republic, that was an awesome RPG game, and Baldur's Gate, obviously. Talking of RPGs and D&D,
Neverwinter?
Neverwinter, yeah.
Yeah, new Neverwinter games
Yeah.
coming out. Yeah.
That's an MMO.
Is that the same people who did Star Trek Online? So they're using the same kind of content creation system on there. They've got a thing called the Foundry that they use for player-generated content. So players create their own adventures within the universe and have their own tools for creating storylines and quests.
Okay, that's now up there with Elder Scrolls Online as my must-buy game purchases this year, then, I think.
Don't know if you remember an old one that was the Vampire the Masquerade game, the PC game.
I never played the PC game.
Because the PC game had a multiplayer online version with a storyteller interface, so you could actually do an online role-playing game of Vampire the Masquerade within the confines of the computer game. You could take over NPCs and put them around. And it was actually really quite a cool system. I can't remember whether that was Bloodlines or Redemption. I think it might have been Bloodlines, so it was a very early one, because there's been two, I think it was just the two PC games as far as I recall, which was Bloodlines and Redemption.
I never
very
came across that.
Redemption was great fun. I played that through as a Malkavian. It's fantastic. If you play as a Malkavian, you just hear mental things going on in the corners, and walking down a street and there's a stop sign, and it just zooms into the stop sign, and you stop there. And then you just carry on. The game just does all these really mental things if you're a Malkavian. Like the guy on the TV starts talking to you and going, "You killed those people." Brilliant. And it's not worth playing as any other race other than Malkavian. It's just nuts.
Malkavian was your character, wasn't it, in the tabletop?
I've always played Malkavians. They're brilliant fun.
Back on the fighting fantasy and game gateway drug, I think for me it went fighting fantasy, and then it went to Warhammer Fantasy Battle and Warhammer Fantasy Roleplay. So I did Wolfrup and I did the fantasy miniature. I never really got to 40k, but I did.
I think that was one of the things I'd completely forgotten until you mentioned that. It was because I popped into Waterstones earlier on this afternoon, and I was going, they've got a card game of Blood Bowl. I was like, that's what I used to play.
Now,
Blood
that's
Bowl.
one of the first things I played.
Skaven is Blood Bowl, and they've got a Space Hulk card game as well. And I'm like, but I remember getting the Space Hulk and doing that because I was more interested in making all the little models for Space Hulk rather than playing the game, because I actually found it quite boring and going, I'd rather paint them.
Well, there's the new Space Hulk video game coming out as well. So.
I remember, God, there was a PS2 game of that.
There was definitely a Warhammer 40k.
Yes,
Reign of Fire.
Reign of Fire, yes.
Various ones. There's Dawn of War.
Dawn of War.
They've done a couple of those.
Yeah.
Introduced various races, and they've done. Is it Battle March for Fantasy Battle as well? There's also the Xbox or Blood Bowl.
Yeah.
Yes.
At the game station.
And of course, Space Marine actually was the big one, the THQ release. And that was the first
they were
person
all
shooter.
plastered all over WWE, because obviously THQ did the WWE games as well. So watching wrestling, and then it was just all Dawn of War.
I say one of the things I love best about Space Marine is the soundtrack. Yeah. Because it's just epic that you now have the budget to have a proper orchestral soundtrack, and I've listened to that so much when I'm writing 40k stories, funnily enough.
Well, I mean, that one of the first games to do that properly was Quake, which was
the Quake soundtrack.
9 Inch Nails Trent Reznor soundtrack for that, because I still got my disc of that, which is CD one side and game on the other side. That was brilliant. That was the first time that they kind of really got proper kind of musicians in to do game soundtracks.
Command and Conquer, Red Alert 2. That soundtrack was outstanding as well. Well, that's on Spotify. I was listening to that on Spotify.
So you got me thinking now, because before we started recording, we were talking about favourite films, and so what would be rather than your favourite, but which game soundtracks would you recommend? Because you mentioned a couple already, but any others?
Well, I know.
For me, it's going to be quite straightforward. It's going to be the Tony Hawk game. So the first Tony Hawk had
Yeah.
an outstanding soundtrack.
Is that the one with Papa Roach and everything on that one?
No, that's...
that was Pro Skater 3, I think.
They're on one of them, but they weren't on the first one. That was the one with Goldfinger and the Ernies. And then Burnout 3 Takedown has got an outstanding soundtrack. That's got Rise Against, it's got Finger 11.
Cool. Like, a lot of the wrestling games normally have really good soundtracks because the SmackDown versus Raw ones tend to have stuff like Saliva, Rise Against, 30 Seconds to Mars, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But I think for me, it was the Vampire the Masquerade Bloodlines because that had stuff like Lacuna Coil and things on it. It was all this kind of darker, gothier, gothic metal type stuff.
That's
awesome. So it was
awesome.
all very atmospheric for the vampire type games.
This is interesting because I was immediately thinking more like orchestral scores because that's what I listen to these days. It's like I haven't got a clue what's going on in the pop scene at all. Because basically any album
and
yeah,
rock sort of stuff.
But any album I bought recently is a soundtrack of some description, either from a movie or a game, and it is because that's what I work to because I find lyrics too distracting.
I was going to ask you about that actually. Yeah, because I tend to listen to a lot of stuff. I listen to a lot of instrumental stuff, which is a lot of kind of post-rock type bands. People like 65 Days of Static and Maybe She Will, which are all very much kind of. They feel like they should be the soundtrack to something, but they're not.
Yeah.
They're just they're concept albums.
Yeah.
So
Stuff like This Will Destroy You.
Yeah.
I Two Steps from Hell, which have got a lot of press over the last couple of years, partly because their stuff just appears on so many movie trailers and adverts now. So having listened to those, a couple of their albums incessantly, every time I hear it. But it depends on, if I'm trying to create a certain mood, if I know I'm really in the zone when I don't notice the music stopped, or if I'm really editing something, which is, I find, because I overwrite and then I have to take stuff out rather than rewrite, so to be really focused, I then don't have anything on at all. But if I'm writing an action scene, I've got my Bond playlist and recent movies just to sort of hype up the tension. And then things like the Skyrim soundtrack.
I was thinking Skyrim.
Or more sort of mood, and that just sort of blends into the background then. But it's...
Because conversely, I used to use a lot of movie soundtracks when I was running role-playing games.
Yeah.
Because I very, very much got into tabletop role-playing to just bring it back to where we were.
Yeah.
My brother got me into, I think I played Blood Bowl with him, and then we got into D&D, and then I started a little Sunday weekend D&D group that I ran when I was like 9, I think it was, and then there was actually a role-playing club where I grew up, so that they would have like 3 or 4 games running in 8-week sessions. So you just go along and you'd sign up for whichever game you want to be in, and then you'd all swap round, and then you run games for that. And then we did some live games as well. And then we'd also have games that took place outside of the club round at people's houses, and I'd run some of those as well. And I was very much, my thing was about creating the atmosphere for the game, so I'd always have music there that was going to get people into the mood of the game, whatever it was, like stuff like Starship Troopers or Event Horizon if I was doing kind of
Event Horizon's
sci-fi.
brilliant one for that.
Yeah, that's Orbital and Michael Kamen. A brilliant soundtrack. And then I'd also have stuff like Aliens and so forth, and The Crow if you're doing something a bit more paranormal. And so there is, I think there's always been a very, very good link between music and these sort of things. It's always interested me.
I think it's interesting as well, the ones where it really does sound like an orchestral track, and you expect to listen to it without necessarily any visuals, and other films which you can really enjoy, and when you listen to the music without the visuals, it's almost jarring at times. Because I find that happens quite a lot with Danny Elfman's scores.
Yeah.
Because like with The Wolfman and with Sleepy Hollow, there's much of it that's great. Sometimes it's sort of dun, 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 sort of clashing strings, and I'm like, whoa, that's just a bit too much. It takes me out of the zone.
I actually chucked a link up on Facebook earlier on today of one I randomly found of these 2 harpists. I can't remember. I think they call themselves the Harp Twins. Now they've got electric harps, and they've done covers. The 2 girls that have done electric harp versions of sort of Metallica stuff and Iron Maiden and stuff. And it's actually really well done. I was like, I was
kind of Apocalyptica with harps.
A little bit, yeah. It is a little bit.
Have you heard of
lighter.
Apocalyptica?
Yes.
It is kind of
3
Apocalyptica.
cellists who do Metallica and stuff.
Because there's also, is it the cello guys who do?
That's Apocalyptica, yeah.
Oh, no, or maybe they're called the piano. There's a guy, I think it's a couple of cellists. Maybe that's it then. Maybe I'm thinking the wrong thing. But there's also a pianist, and they do almost like an overture of a film score. So they'll rewrite it. So you've got like a 5-minute piece of music which will cover the whole. I think they've done like Lord of the Rings and things like that, and they work very well.
That might be a.
There's one they have, one of their YouTube videos. It's Star Wars. So rather than bows, they're playing with lightsabers.
Oh yes, that's actually one chap, and he played both parts and put himself against himself. So yeah, it's one chap on a cello. Cool. I can't remember his name for the life of me, but yeah, he actually plays a classical cello, doesn't he? And he's got a lightsaber instead of it's actually the same guy. If you rewatch it, it's actually the same guy, and he's just mirrored himself, and he's played both parts.
And that's called special effects, is that?
It is. Yeah.
Like I'm being dragged into the 21st century.
There's been quite a few because I've seen another one of a guy who was singing. He plays guitar and he has himself stood next to himself singing. And they sing at each other and have conversations.
Yeah.
But it's just him on a split screen.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's quite a few of those out there, I think.
There's a lot of that going on at the moment. It's a bit weird.
There's some great stuff with lightsabers as well being overdubbed onto things recently.
The Princess Bride with lightsabers.
With lightsabers.
Awesome.
Well, did you see Adam Buxton's thing about the new Pope?
No.
Oh, you have to. It's like finding a new Pope, and it's basically like it's from Star Wars. And you have the same sort of Imperial March in the background, and you have planets and spaceships going overhead and saying, and they're welcoming, and all these bizarre names, and all talking their alien languages. And there's these nuns, and they're sort of from the download planet, and they're processing data. And as he's giving them the communion wafer, it goes, and then they kind of walk off the next one in the line. And at the end, they're saying he picks up the chalice, which then has a massive lightsaber comes out the top of it. You've got to check that one out. It's very
That
funny.
looks brilliant, yeah.
Right, well, we'll stick a link to that in the
vlog description,
notes.
yeah, for sure.
Cool.
Also, the Jaime Lannister versus Eddard Stark fight from Game of Thrones season 1, but done with lightsabers. That's really good.
That's one weird thing I saw in the news. Was the guy who used to be on Casualty and was in Game of Thrones, apparently.
Clive Mantle.
Yeah, had his ear bitten off.
Didn't he have 2 fingers bitten off in Game of Thrones? But I suppose he's a bit more annoyed this time.
Yeah, he was staying in in a travelling or something. Yeah, and he'd gone to complain about people making noise, and one guy held him down, the other guy bit his ear off.
Yeah.
It's like, what?
Yeah. He had to have it stitched back on.
He'd just come off that he'd been doing the Lady Killers on stage up there.
That's it.
Oh, what?
But of course, I remember him from Robin of Sherwood.
Yes,
Little John. He was Little John.
Yeah, he was Little John in
So when he
Robin
appeared in
Sherwood.
Casualty or Holby City, whatever it was, I was like, what?
Yeah.
But yeah.
That was...
The possessed Little John as he first appears.
Yes.
With the pentagram on his chest on a Saturday evening, 2 times Valley. Yes,
Yeah.
that was the 80s.
It's never been the same since.
Yeah, I love that.
Robin of Sherwood.
Yeah.
That's a massive influence on me. Although I do see the whole 80s haircut now as a little bit ridiculous.
Were you Michael Praed or Jason Connery?
Yeah.
Well, that's a question. Yeah.
That's like who's your
The
favourite
thing
Doctor?
is, I think probably as an actor, Michael Praed.
I preferred Michael Praed.
But for the stories, partly because he got more of them, I think.
Yeah.
And they did bring in the whole Gulnar and like Crom Crack, which I just loved that
right.
story.
Yeah.
And I have referenced these things endless in my own stuff. So for the extra content, bonus content, I'd say it was,
Did you see Jason Connery many years later? He did a kids show called Shoebox Zoo.
No.
Which has voices from Rick Mayall and a load of other people, and Jason Connery plays like this kind of bald, evil magician in it, and it's brilliant. Yeah, it's basically about a little.
Shoebox Zoo.
Yeah,
I'll try that one down.
it's about this girl who gets a shoebox, and in there they've got little kind of wooden animals that come to life, and they talk to her and everything, and there's just this big kind of epic adventure about this shoebox. There's only 2 seasons of it. It's like maybe 12 episodes. This
never
kids
even heard of
program
that
called
one.
Shoebox Zoo. It's brilliant.
Yeah.
Really,
But
really good.
aren't they sort of souls of people put into these
put
toys?
into the
And
toys.
these toys are helping her to solve this whole mystery and get the souls
great
released.
dark stuff on Kids' Tales.
Oh,
It
it's
is, yeah.
brilliant.
Yeah.
The whole
We
thing
saw
on
it on
retro
TV
telly.
and we were like, oh, got to get this for Megan. And
Yeah.
she loved it.
There's an old show called The Moon Dial.
Yes.
That was
me.
dark as balls, that was.
That was
Well, it depends on where you put
Black
it.
and pendulous.
Okay, that was just a very dark show.
Yeah.
Sorry, I think of my mannerisms.
It only worked at night, didn't it? At some point, they sort
Yeah.
of spun around. It was a time travel thing, time
Yeah.
slip. The one before, well, probably a few years before that, which I loved, was The Witches and the Grinnygog.
That one
And
I
it's
can
based on a Dorothy Edwards book, which I think won some children's book award. And I think it was published in 81. She died in 82, and the TV show is 83 or 84. And it stars a young Adam Woodyates, as in Ian Beale from EastEnders. And there's a few other names. It was, I'm trying to think their names now, but like Anna Wing as well, who was also then in EastEnders. But basically, it has these witches, obviously, but it was more the idea of it being pagan beliefs and pre-Christian beliefs rather than being, wicked creatures. But it's very sinister and creepy and unsettling. There's this whole bit where one of them's lost her daughter and is looking for her, and they steal a mannequin from a shop, and you either see this mannequin sitting in the chair looking really odd and like slightly wig skew, or you see her from behind and they're walking with their daughter and she seems to move. And at one point the kids go into this bedroom and like they snap a finger off by mistake and things, and it's very dark, but it's pretty.
Yeah.
You can watch it on YouTube now. I don't think it's ever been released on DVD, but I only watched it like when it came out originally, and it just stuck with me. And last year, I think it was, I watched it again, and you just realise, even on poor tube, video to transfer, whatever, with basically no special effects whatsoever, how effective and powerful and creepy it can be. And it was on at like 4
I
o'clock in the
don't think
afternoon.
anything will ever be as creepy as the original stop-motion Moomins. Did you ever?
I loved that. That was creepy.
That
whole
white
felt
thing was terrifying.
Oh, do you mean the Hattie Fanners?
Yeah, they scared the crap out of me when I
They
was a
scared
kid.
me when my dad read the stories to me. The Hobgoblin's
They're weird.
hat.
It was
There was some
terrifying, the
dark stuff, actually.
Moomins.
But then it did come from Norway.
Yeah.
I think it's dark for about 6 months of the year, so it's going to come.
Yeah, that's
Isn't
why.
isn't there talk of a Moomin movie?
Really?
Yes.
Because I know they came back and they did it as an animated cartoon
yes.
later.
Yeah.
But
I'm not 100% on it, but I think it's not going to be a live sort of action. I think Studio Ghibli's got involved there somehow.
That would kind of suit their animation
Yeah,
It
style.
does, yeah.
that would.
They certainly have a lot of Moomin stuff at the moment in the Studio Ghibli stores out in Japan, and
Okay.
they're big fans of it. So I think the Studio Ghibli are in negotiations.
That would make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
From what I can pick up, but it's
What else is there? Children of the Stones. See, I'm showing my age now, because these are all like
Well, no,
70s.
there was that one that was somebody posted the other day. It was Knights of God.
Yes,
Because
I remember watching that.
That was one of the first books
that
I
had a
ever
great
bought at a
twist.
school book fair.
That had people going properly mad and all sorts
Yeah.
of search for the guy sent to hunt down the descendant of the British throne, basically. But yeah, if you get to see it, you should. It's very good.
Yeah, that was a very good show.
Had lots of helicopters in there, I remember. Sort of-
That's before my time, I think.
Yeah, well, I think that was probably about 82 or 83.
probably. I know Children of the Stones was in the 70s, so that's all filmed around Avebury.
I remember
really
stuff from
high-powered stuff.
83.
Yeah.
I would only have been 3 years old, but I do remember the tripods terrifying the crap
Oh
out
yeah,
of
I
me.
used to love that one, but
Tripods terrified the
it-
shit out
it
of me.
was-
I'm sorry, they were scary as hell.
I've recently reread the trilogy because I wrote a piece in it for SFX magazine. But yeah, my introduction to it was TV, and also on Blue Peter they had a whole bit about how they did the special effects. It was the Quantor paint box. There are only like 2 in the country, and the BBC had one of them and the weathermen were using it, so they had to kind of have these weird times of day when they could use the effectively proto-computer generated effects. But I love those, but they diverge massively from the books, and I have no idea why. There's one where they go off like for multiple episodes pressing grapes in a farm or off on a barge, which are kind of passing references in the book.
Yeah.
But it's a shame that they never made the final part.
They didn't finish, did they? No. Yeah, I can remember that.
Very ambitious for its time as well.
yeah, the whole capping bit. That's a bit weird.
Yeah.
But I remember going. I think that was one of the first sort of things, because I love dressing up and doing all sorts of weird and wonderful sort of makeup and things like that in the past.
Makeup, dresses.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks.
No, I remember actually trying to make something like that when I was back in school. Getting bits of cardboard and sticking tin foil on it. And
It was always Matt Irvin, wasn't it? Was the special effects guy for years, and he did stuff like Doctor Who spaceships, and I think he worked on the tripods, and they'd always wheel him out onto Blue Peter, and how he made them, and yet it was quite obviously like a washing up bottle, spray painted silver. Yeah, so he's kind of gone by the wayside. I guess.
Fits nicely with Blue Peter then. It's
That's true, that's true.
Yeah.
And a washing up bottle.
Yeah.
And if your parents are supervising, you can use sparklers as the rockets.
Should we take a break for music?
Yeah, cool. After all the chat of music, we'll stick on some interval music. So
Who have we got this week?
this week we have a track from The Men That Will Not Be Blamed for Nothing. So we're going for a bit of a steampunk feel this week. So when we come back, we'll be chatting with Jonathan quite a lot more about steampunk and the like. But yeah, if you've not heard The Men That Will Not Be Blamed for Nothing, they're very, very fun. They're a very different take on steampunk to what some other bands do. They are basically punk with lyrics about 1890s and people like Isambard Kingdom Brunel and fun songs like that. But yeah, this one is Goggles. So yeah, enjoy, and we'll see you on the other side of it.
Most men like their women deferential and polite, but we prefer the type of girl who looks like she could win a fight. Dainty girls are all well and good, but they can't fix your stuff. A pretty girl's all right for some, for us it's not enough. I love the girly goggles, it's goggles that does it for me. You can keep your girly girls. I want a woman who loves getting dirty, a girl who's just strip and engine, glistening with sweat and oil. I love the girly goggles, it's goggles, it's goggles. Sporty girls and looks and charm, that spirit, smarts and wit. If you just want an ornament, then you serve a tit. Dainty girls are all well and good, but they can't fix your stuff. The pretty girls are right for some, but for us it's not enough. I love the girly goggles, it's goggles that does it for me. You can keep your girly girls. I want a woman who likes getting dirty, a girl who's just stripped and engine, glistening with sweat and oil. I love the girly goggles, it's goggles, it's goggles. Girly girl, I like that woman who likes getting dirty, a girl who can strip and engine, glisten with sweat and with oil. I love the girly goggles, it's goggles. Why do we as men reject this view of women folk and embrace the type that sing and dance and fart and fuck and smoke? So fuck polite society and all that entails. More body salt, messed up hair and dirty fingernails. It's time that we as men reject this view of women folk. Embrace the type that sing and dance and part and fuck and smoke. Fuck polite society and all that entails. Body salt and messed up hair and dirty fingernails.
Welcome back to the show.
Yay, welcome back. So yes, that was the Men That Will Not Be Blamed for Nothing, who I believe just played at Steampunk at the Seaside this weekend, which is effectively a steampunk version of the Sci-Fi Weekender that we all went to down at Camber Sands.
Camber Sands, which is an old site of a sci-fi weekend.
It
Indeed,
is,
yes.
and it was the SFX Weekender, the first two.
The first two,
First two, yeah.
The third.
Well, it was the first three, wasn't it? Because SFX 3 was still...
Yes, that was
Three
Prestatyn.
was not, yeah.
It was Prestatyn.
Oh, sorry, that was at Prestatyn.
Yeah.
Sorry, I
sorry.
thought you meant SFX were only involved in 1 and 2. But
Oh, no.
crossed wires. But yeah, so yeah, Robert Rankin and everyone was down at that, and The Men That Will Not Be Blamed for Nothing were playing on the Saturday night.
Excellent.
The first ever steampunk weekend.
It's becoming a quite popular thing now.
It's becoming a very popular thing to do these weekends. I remember when they first cropped up, it was like about 10 years ago when I think Kerrang did a weekender.
Yeah.
I think it was Camber Sands.
I can't remember.
I think the first ever Kerrang weekender was at Camber Sands, and that's kind of, now you get loads of these kind of either metal festivals or sci-fi conventions and things that take over a place for a whole weekend. It's an interesting way of doing things. It kind of, as as we've all grown up and stopped going to festivals, now,
Yeah.
now we don't have to go and stay in a
Versions of
tent.
festivals.
We can now instead go and stay in a chalet that has no heating. Or,
Oh, only if you're unlucky. I mean, I think
I was in a tent in the middle of a field back in October.
I know. Well, I go camping as well. We do Wallingford Bunk Fest and stuff, and we did. Well, yeah.
So I'm a biker, and I go to lots of sort of bike events that
Oh, okay.
involve much alcohol and tents.
So you do it properly.
Sort of 400 miles of riding, yeah.
Wow.
Jousting on motorbikes.
Oh yeah, motorbike jousting. Awesome.
That brings me back to telly I used to watch in the 80s. The One Game. Did anyone else ever see that?
The one.
the
game?
one game.
Because
Oh
that
my
was
god,
inspired by things like
it's
Games
ringing a bell.
Workshop and Mike Oldfield.
All right. No,
And it's cult DVD. Got to get it. I don't want to spoil anything, but there is some motorbiker jousting.
Wow.
Okay, I'll have to check that one out.
Because it sounds like something that they would have done on It's a Knockout, but with
Yeah.
scooters.
It had this
Yeah,
fantastic...
an inflatable one.
No, it's much more serious than that. It has this fantastic haunting theme, which is sung in Patagonian Welsh,
Wow.
Wow.
which apparently is a real thing. So there you go. That's my recommendation, The One Game.
Cool.
I'll check that one out.
Yeah.
We do unearth some real gems of shows on this.
It's one of the few things I'll
podcast.
watch again and again. Every couple of years I have to get out the DVD set. So there you go.
Great.
You making notes, man?
I'm checking my notes. Because my brain's gone completely blank.
There is one that's out on one of the Discovery channels at the moment, which is called Full Metal Jousting. And no, it's actually people who are horse riders or cowboys and things like various different countries going to this great big huge ranch in America, and they're actually doing like full on bolt on armor, and they compete to win a massive money prize and also to be in the shows that these guys do.
Outstanding.
And it's actually quite an amazing show.
Talking of Full Metal Combat, is what you were saying. I finally saw the first
I was gonna
episode
say, have you seen
of
it?
Robot Combat
You've
League.
seen it? Oh, dude, you've got to tell us what's it like.
It's awesome. It is the best, worst show you will ever watch.
Robot Combat. That's like
Yeah.
going on my list.
Robot Combat
Yeah,
League.
it's something we'd heard about it. We talked about it on the very first show, I think it was. And it's Chris Jericho, the WWE wrestler,
Right.
introducing a show which is robots that are controlled by humans fighting in a ring.
Yeah.
Wow.
Essentially, the teams are all in partners, and one partner wears this harness which fits over the top, and they control the arm movements of the robot.
See, for a minute I'm thinking this sounds just like Robot Wars, but I can see what you mean. This
it's
is real steel.
Yes,
Yes,
pretty
it's
much.
essentially real
It's
steel.
pretty much real steel, and it's more rock'em sock'em robots than real steel.
Yeah.
To be fair, because they're on this. Essentially, they're pushed out on a.
They've got like a metal stanchion behind them, haven't they?
Well, one half of the team controls the upper body. The other person in the team controls the legs and the movement. So they can wander around the ring, but they're kind of restricted. They can't really turn on an axis. They can just sort of like move left, right, and forward. But yeah, these things punch with massive amounts of pressure as well, apparently. But it's brutal. It's a really brutal show. I thoroughly enjoyed it. So yeah.
Cool. I have to see it at some point. Just
Sadly, no lion salts and no walls of Jericho, but you know, kind of everything. It's definitely worth a watch.
Cool. So, were you not up for going down to the Steampunk by the Seaside? You not fancy that?
To be honest, there's so many things I do now. I have to ration the ones I do.
Yeah.
And no, I knew about it for a long time because it's the same guys who organise. It's the Victorian Steampunk Society, and they organise weekend at the Asylum in Lincoln, which is early September. And I've done the last two of those, and I'm hoping to go again this year. And having done the Weekender, and I'm going to something else in Doncaster, and there's just so many that at some point I have to see my children at the weekend. Or my wife would have something to say about it.
Yeah.
So I did think about it, yeah, but I'm quite glad I didn't because it was very cold. Lots of
Apparently
friends
so,
who went,
yeah.
and I got quite cold in North Wales at the Sci-Fi Weekender.
Yeah. It was bitterly cold on the Saturday night.
Saturday night, yeah.
And it feels sometimes like you could almost do something every weekend.
Oh, yeah.
And
yeah. There's a lot of stuff going on.
I have other stuff to do as well.
But yeah, that actually ties in quite nicely. You were talking about the Asylum, and that's, I believe, where you met the gentleman that you're doing your current Kickstarter project with.
That's right, Mr. Tom Brown.
Yes.
Yep, never met before, but we were in the same room. Sort of our eyes met across a crowded room, And I think I saw his artwork first of all, which was fantastic, and chatted to him, not very much actually, but and he picked up one of my books, and very kindly at the end of the weekend actually gave me one of his pictures, which is very generous of him. And then we just got chatting on Facebook, and I can't really remember how the conversation started, but I mean, quite often when I meet people like that and I think, I'd love to do some work with them, so I said, how would you feel about collaborating on something? He went, yeah, up for it, love it. And then I suggested it was going to be like an A to Z of steampunk, and I hadn't really thought about the details and too much beyond that. And then I'm not quite sure the idea came from, but I said, or how about something a bit more gothic-y, where, blah, blah, blah. And he went, the second one. And I wrote it that afternoon.
Wow.
Which I wish all my projects would have done that quickly. But it just feels like it's one of those stories I've been waiting to be told. And other books I can look back on and think, oh, I had ideas for that 10 years ago. This one, I really don't know where it came from. Cool. But then the details sort of expanded from that. So I didn't have the names. It's quite hard to explain what it is without giving too much away, which is a constant battle I've had with the Kickstarter, because people keep saying, well, tell us more about it. It's like, or give us the first chapter. It's like, it's not like that, because it's a poem. And it is an A to Z. And it reads to begin with like it's a kid's poem. But very quickly you realise it's a lot darker than that. And we sent it out, the proposal out to various publishers who were really positive about it. And they said, Puffin Children's Books said it's brilliant, it's not cuddly dinosaurs, we love it, but it's so dark and doesn't fit within one of the established sort of marketable areas, because you can't directly market it to kids, but then it's like this picture book, so you wouldn't market it to adults. So people really struggled to find it. So I mean, it's hopefully opened some doors further down the line. And I can completely understand that. I completely agree that they do have this issue. But that was... but then I sent it off to Newcom Press, Ian Waits, who's a writer and editor. And basically he phoned me up to say, well, I didn't want to put this in email, but, but loved the story, loved the artwork, loved how they married together, but I can't afford to do this. And for a small publisher, the costs are too high for us. At which point I said, have you heard of Kickstarter? Because it is this opportunity to create these, I would say unique, but I don't want to, it might be too presumptuous to say that, but these unusual projects which is hard to pigeonhole. But because you can directly market it to people. But the one thing I have found tricky with this one is because there sort of isn't a history to hang it on without putting the whole poem out there to begin with, to explain to people. But yeah, it's meant to appear, if you imagine things like the Gruffalo and those sort of kids' books, but more gothic-y. So you've got, like across 2 pages, there's a verse. So the first verse is, A is for apple, so shiny and red, but take just one bite and you'll soon end up dead. And it continues, B is for burial, when no one suspects the girl by the graveside of a plan so complex. So you start to get, and it goes on like this. Yeah. So basically, Clemency Slaughter is our anti-heroine, shall we say. And it's what unfolds and what happens to all the members of her family. Okay. And they have these most amazing names, but we that came later because the poem was written. So then we've sort of named the characters for the artwork. So Tom's done, every single character's got their own portrait, and they're fantastic. He's done, as one of the rewards, a full family portrait. They're all in there. Yeah. And what I love is if you look at it, there's one guy who's like standing up in the distance. You can only see him like on top of a monument. And in his portrait, he's just a bloke up on a cliff. So Tom created all of them. I mean, I just said Clemency's like about 13 years old, hair tied back. And it's this weird gothic-y world. It's a bit like when people look back on Arthurian legend. It's a time that doesn't exist. It's that kind of gothic world which never really existed, but is inspired by Poe and things like A Series of Unfortunate Events inhabited and the American Gothic painting.
I love Series of Unfortunate Events.
So it's born of a steampunk convention, and it's actually ended up not being steampunk at all, which has been a bit tricky. But it's macabre, it's dark, it's hopefully a bit humorous.
Yeah, I think it sounds fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, I'd love Tom to be able to do all the rest, because it's completely written, and I'd love to be able to see his artwork for it, because everything he does just blows me away. Even though I've said, I think we should do this in this picture, what he's done is just takes it to another level, which is why it works in this. It is a proper, true collaboration.
We'll put the link to the Kickstarter in the show notes.
Yeah, so we're both me and my wife are very, very much looking forward to it. We want to get it funded because Emma wants her books and I want my books as well.
Yeah. Well, we've got great plans. There's a launch party and things in London.
I've backed it as well.
Thank you.
We're big fans of Kickstarter here. I think we talked about Kickstarter on the every show so far. Because there's always been something on there that's caught our attention.
Yeah.
I love it. It is people being patron of the arts again, rather than being told, this is what's in, this is what we're going to market to you.
Absolutely.
Which is why, again, I think, it's these unusual projects which otherwise you wouldn't get a life. It's like, it's my second Kickstarter. The first one I did last year was to write a history of fighting fantasy game books.
I only found this out at the last podcast, and because Spindle said that, I was like, if I'd known, that would have been.
Well, I mean, that got funding, so I'm basically starting work on it over Easter, with the intention it'll be ready for this autumn, Christmas.
That's Christmas sorted for me then.
And that was interesting because that is one of those books where it's a niche product. There's a lot. It's basically a coffee table book. If we can do it hardback, we didn't quite get the funding for the stretch goal to do hardback, but I'm going to see if we can do that. So it is this full colour, really high end. People had to pay premium price for it, and there aren't that many people. So if you said to a publisher, I reckon about 500 people will buy this, it's going to cost this much, they'd say no way. Whereas Kickstarter, those people you can go to directly, and they say yes, and this is a value to me, and so much so that some people have bid to have lunch with Steve Jackson, Ian Livingstone, and myself.
Yeah. I think it's amazing because I backed the Amanda Palmer Grand Theft Audio album that came out, and that was amazing. I got the coffee table art book with that and everything. I'm such a huge fan of Kickstarter. Just I get to pay for stuff that I want before it's even released. I can go, yes, that looks amazing. I want that now. And I've backed the Elite Dangerous game that's out next year.
I think, again, it attracts a certain type of person, and once you do that, people... Because I know another friend of mine, he says he spends a significant amount of money each year on Kickstarter.
Yeah, there's all sorts of stuff on there, because that's where the makey things came from.
Absolutely,
You've seen the makey's. They're
not yet.
I bought one for Ady for his birthday, and we've yet to have a play with it. Basically, you can turn anything into a keyboard with it.
Oh, wow.
So it's just like...
Plasticine, paper,
anything that it conducts electricity.
Yeah, anything that conducts electricity, because some people have made like Play-Doh control pads for Nintendo Wii's and stuff, and they actually work.
That's awesome.
It's fantastic. It's an invention kit.
It's an extended
Makey, makey.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's great fun, so we're going to have a play with that and probably get...
Available
knock a video together.
Yeah, we'll definitely get a film crew down to film something for that for sure.
Yes.
I mean, I'd want to do more Kickstarter. I've got a couple of plans in mind. One, at the moment, is just me, but another one with a publisher, potentially. But certainly, whatever happens with Clemency, I'd like to think it will fund. I wouldn't want to be presumptuous, but we'll see what happens one way or the other. But Tom and I, the plan is to do more collaborations in the future.
But the closing date for this Kickstarter is...
It's the 13th of April, because when I first looked at it, I misread the calendar, I thought the 13th of April was Friday. And because there is a rather macabre tone to it all, I've kind of played up the whole 13 as unlucky for some, which might prove to be the case if it doesn't fund. But I think as of today, I think it's about 16 days left to run.
And we're over 25% funded now, I think.
Yeah, I mean, it's starting to pick up. What I found is it's just social media is the way to do it. But it has to get beyond your... It's when other people start messaging it and spreading it around. And Geek Syndicate guys kindly let me do a guest blog post, and the author Emma Newman, who's got her new Split Worlds book out, let me do one. Awesome. And just today, having those two gone live, we've got 2 new backers, and I can't help thinking it's not unconnected.
Well, Emma really pushed the... Was it the 9 Worlds... Geek Festival? She really pushed that, and that smashed through its funding target.
Yeah. There have been some amazing success stories. There was one video game I think made 3 million. I think that was the highest thing. And there was a guy who's done a game book based on Hamlet, To Be or Not to Be, and I think that's the highest grossing publishing project so far. I think he made over $500,000.
Wow.
That's pretty good going, yeah.
And it's certainly those sort of things, like gaming seems to work particularly well. So one of the ones I want to do is a game book, but I think that I might try plugging as a game rather than a book, because I just think they seem to have quite a big following. But I'm not a businessman at all, so it's been an eye-opener.
Yeah, I think it's a great way to advertise yourself across the social media, but then you end up having to become a very self-publicising person, and that's very difficult. Because Kevin Smith talks about this a lot, because he's constantly out there and he publicises himself at any possible moment that he can. He's like, I've got this going on, I've got this going on.
Well, it's like people might not believe it, but it's, I guess the fact you've asked me to be on the show and I've talked about various things I've written or worked on, but it's not in my nature. I'm an introvert by nature, so I've had to sort of force myself and teach myself to do this, so it becomes habit as much as anything. And it's the first time I've ever been accused of spamming. You know, people have left groups or asked me to lay off things. I've had people stop following me on Facebook and Twitter, except that I've had far more start to follow me. So I kind of think at the end of the day, and it's, you know, people don't realise, but it is only me. I don't have an agent, I don't have a publicist. If I don't do it, who else is going to do it?
Absolutely.
And it's how I make a living
Yeah,
at the end of the day.
That's exactly what we do in terms of this podcast as well. The only reason that it works is because we go out there, we go, look, we're doing this, and we'd like to be involved in this, and we constantly get in touch with bands every week saying, would you mind if we put your songs on, and get in touch with other people saying you want to come on the podcast and stuff like that, and then having to go to kind of end distributors of people like Stitcher and people like iTunes and getting the podcasts on there and getting them distributed and trying to push the advertising on those and constantly checking stats on Google Feedburner. It's tough work doing the self-promotion, and I think I was very, very much similar, that I'm very introverted and kind of I would always put stuff online, but I'd never really shout about it. I'd just kind of, I'll just put that there and then see if anyone notices it or whatever. But I think recently, since we started doing this, I've kind of turned a corner on it and been very much like, well, let's just put it out there and actually tell people about it and try and engage with an audience. Yeah.
Well, I'm proud of it, so I do, but I don't think it's a massive surprise. I don't think it'd be a total surprise to say that a lot of people in the geek and nerd community are kind of introverted, you know.
But that's what I love about things like The Weekender, going back to that, because they are the most welcoming places. I've never, ever had anybody say a bad word or anything. And there's such an eclectic range of people, and everybody gets on it, kind of, because you break down that barrier of, like, it's almost like an AA meeting. You start off by saying, hello, I'm a geek, that's why I'm here. You know, why else would I come to North Wales in February? Especially when there's no heating.
I had a couple of bad experiences at this weekend, to be honest.
There's been a few around, and I think it's something that, it's been fed back to the organisers, and
I was playing mini golf on the Saturday before the Peter Davison panel, just with the friends that I went up with, and a couple of people walking past just saying, oh, look at those idiots playing mini golf. It's just like,
no need,
for that, right? And I love cosplayers, and I love cosplay, and I want to do a lot more cosplay. But at times at this event, I felt looked down upon for not being in cosplay.
I thought you were going to say you felt overdressed.
No, there were times when I felt that because I wasn't in cosplay, I somehow wasn't at a particular echelon of nerddom at this weekend. But it was only a couple of times. But for the majority of the weekend,
it's funny you mention actually, because the first time I went to Weekend at the Asylum, I made sure I had my jeans and I had a smart shirt, and I was so underdressed because everybody's there dressed up to the nines, and I felt really self-conscious. And it is something I've kind of, again, it's learning. People have a certain expectation. If you're being promoted as a steampunk author, I turn up with at least my waistcoat, my collarless shirt, and I grow a beard for the weekend, because you've now seen me in my other garb, and without smoking jacket.
In your civvies.
Yes. But now I've got the robot parrots. Hopefully that'll distract attention.
Actually, waistcoats are a permanent fixture.
Well, yeah. I think the hoodie is more or less a permanent fixture for me. I think
I dress like my son. Yes, basically.
But yes, you have your robot parrot, which is very, very cool. Steampunk parrot.
Oh, okay, does this count as steampunk? Have you come across Fallen London yet? The Story Nexus game.
I've heard of it.
Online. Again, it's Emma. It was one of her posts on Facebook.
Oh, okay. I haven't seen it.
She said she was hooked on it, and I was like, what is it? So I went on it, and I was like, yes. And 5 minutes later, I was posting on her Facebook, like, yes, now I'm hooked on it, Emma. Thank you very much.
Just because you needed something else to
Fallen London.
Take up your day.
London. Oh,
yeah, it's kind of an interactive story, which I guess kind of fits with the theme of the show.
Yeah.
But you build a character, and the higher you level your character, the more story options are revealed to you. But it is one of those time farmers like Farmville where you can only have 10 goes, and then you have to wait for your turns to regen.
Or it's the old microtransaction.
Yeah.
Yeah, they are far too easy to carry out, aren't they?
Yeah.
It's only 49p.
I know.
Yeah.
It's only another 49p and another 49p.
But it's set in an alternate London, and there's demons, and it has a very sort of Victoriana feel to it, as far as I'm concerned when I'm writing it. Look at me, pressing buttons, letting the story write itself.
When you're engaging with it.
Yes, when I'm letting it write itself for me.
Sounds a little bit Golden Compass to me. It seems like it's had a bit of a steal from that. It takes some bits from that. And
It feels a lot darker than, if possible, than
I was
possible.
going to say that.
I was going to say, if you actually read the books, not watched the TV show.
The film. That film was terrible. I saw that film for free.
Comparatively to the actual books.
I saw that film for free, and I still almost walked out of it.
Did you see the stage version at the National Theatre?
I didn't actually.
Because that was awesome.
Yeah.
And I'd seen that before I saw the movie, and I think it was Patricia Hodge was cast, as I can't remember the character's name now, rather than in the Nicole Kidman role.
Oh,
And
Mrs. Coulter.
That's it, and it was just so much better. It was all done with puppets. It was very clever, very powerful.
That sounds good.
It was excellent.
Yeah, the film disappointed me immensely.
Oh, yeah. Probably best not to go into that one. I was spitting feathers at the end of it. It's like, what do you mean you're leaving it there? What about the rest of the book?
It's interesting that you mentioned, because we've now got onto Golden Compass and steampunk, because I think steampunk is a very broad church.
It is.
And certainly it's now becoming a much more mainstream thing. I don't know if you heard about the IBM supercomputer.
No.
It crunched all these blogs and various things, and there was some big retail conventional meeting in America where they were told that for 2013 steampunk is the next big thing.
Well, I've seen it creeping in over the last couple of years because we've
Claire's
got
Accessories, for
Claire's
one.
Accessories have a whole range of steampunk stuff that Megan got stuff for when
Exactly,
we went
yeah.
to.
And also, you now have teenagers talking about vintage
Yeah.
Yes.
clothing
Oh,
and
yeah.
things like, well, Doctor Who's always been steampunk, 'cause it's been an Edwardian Victorian gentleman travelling box. But it's become more explicit, and I think what really struck for me was in the closing ceremony for the Olympics, they said, the commentator said, this is the steampunk bit.
Yes.
And to use that phrase in that context. So I think because it's becoming a known phrase now, people, if it's Victoriana, they'll call it steampunk.
Yes.
But then equally, you get this slight blurring where it's an alternate London, so people, it's just an easy catch-all now.
Okay, cool.
Whether it is, but I have not played Fallen London, so I don't know. But you certainly got, because I know some people say it has to be set during the Victorian times, which I disagree with, because part of it, I feel it has to have that knowing anachronistic element to it.
Yeah.
It's the future as imagined by the Victorians. Although equally that could be within the Victorian era. But for example, my own setting is the end of the 20th century, but it's a steampunk setting. Then you've got others which are far future, others which take place during Victoria's reign. So.
Yeah, well, it's like Firefly. I would still count as being steampunk, even though it's not. But
The dwarfs in Warhammer Fantasy Battle, they're machines. I always considered them to be steampunk.
Well, they have a steam cannon. Yes. And, the steam tank in the Empire Army. That's awesome.
I remember speaking to a mutual friend of ours that some years ago. This is Sophie. Before she moved to Worcester, it's like way before she moved to Worcester. She actually said to me, "It's like, oh, you look really good in sort of steampunk," and this must have been 10 years ago at least. Saying you'd fit really well into the steampunk ethos. I said, I'm not really sure about that. I'm more sort of Mad Max, and we actually discussed the different genres of like steampunk, diesel punk, and then we came up with our own sort of genre of post-apocalyptic petrol punk.
Yeah, but even at the weekend at the Asylum
sort
last
of like
year,
Mad
I was
Max style.
asked to help judge the costume competition, and people go into so much effort, and they create a whole persona around it or a backstory.
yes,
And you've got people there where it's post-apocalyptic. You've got others where it could be like late 1890s or something. And also you find you get such a range because some people, there are steampunk stories which have overtly fantastical magical elements to the point where I think
It's alternate universe.
Yeah, the Victoriana game setting, which Cubicle 7 produced, has elves and orcs. It's almost like, trying to remember what's
Shadowrun. Yeah. Oh, don't talk to me about Shadowrun, sir.
In that context. And then you've got stories like mine where I've basically said it before, so it's not spoiling it for anybody, but I decided quite early on explicitly there is no supernatural in Pax Britannia. There's mad science and tons of it. There's aliens. There's things which might appear to be supernatural but then turn out to be something else. And that was just a decision I made very early on. So, but it's still steampunk, so... I like to think of it as a flavour. That's my favourite term.
This was the discussion that we had when we were at the Sci-Fi Weekend.
Exactly, yeah. Because you've got so many things which are recognisably steampunk, and yet you could have... And I've done it myself. I've written horror stories, I've written sci-fi, I've written espionage, thrillers, action-adventure, but they're all got a steampunk flavour, but they're all equally would fit within another genre altogether.
So what was it that kind of drew you to the steampunk genre? What kind of made you go, this is the universe I want to write in?
I had the idea because I pitched it to Baden Books, I think it was about 2006 or 2005. When they first started up, they basically sent out, there was online forums and things, and one was through the 2000 AD website because it's Rebellion who own both. And they said, we've got these 4 shared worlds, we want looking for authors, we're equally open to new ideas. So I sent them an email saying, I'd quite happily write for any of these, and how about this? And I wrote a 2-paragraph email pitch, and nothing changed from that. Stuff got added, but I even made up the name of the character, Ulysses Quicksilver, thinking I can change that later, and it stuck. It just seems... That name sums up so much about what I was trying to do, I think. But my influences, because I did find some notes the other day, which actually go back 10 years before that, which had the basic plot of the first book, but with a different name for the character, which I'd sort of forgotten about. So I think for me it was reading things like Tim Powers, The Anubis Gates.
All right.
It was reading Kim Newman, and he and I have been on the panels where we have a differing opinion on this, but I'm not sure how pleased he was when he discovered that Anno Dracula was one of my influences on steampunk, because I agree it's not a steampunk book, but it was definitely that sort of darkness, and also that metafictional quality where you bring in real historical figures and fictional figures and all merge into the one and twists on things. So I've done that. League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, the original comic.
Yes.
Some 2000 AD stuff going back before that, which wasn't necessarily so. Things like Indigo Prime, Time.
Yeah.
So looking back now, these had obviously all worked away, and Doctor Who, and went into the melange. So yeah, when I set it out, I said I want to pitch a steampunk universe because I know lots of people.
ABC Warriors kind of
Bits of it, yeah.
A bit, yeah.
Yeah, so multiple influences, but it obviously bubbled away, and it was the right
something
time,
that
and
stuck,
it's just
Yeah, because I keep trying to figure out where it all kind of started with steampunk. Yeah, because we were talking earlier about Wild Wild West. That's one of the first kind of overtly steampunk films that I remember.
particularly the last sequence with the tarantula.
Yeah.
Yes.
And the engineers, which have got metal plates and
Yes.
or other parts of their bodies. I mean, it started with cyberpunk.
Well,
And it was a joke. It was a throwaway comment. KWG put in a letter to Locus magazine, 87 or something, saying what should we call ourselves, steampunks?
Yeah.
And that's people like Blaylock as well, with his book Homunculus, and they were just jokingly trying to get a name for it. And it just started to worm its way into things, and people have this need to pigeonhole stuff anyway. So it's, But I think there have been definite steps where it moves forward, just like with anything with technology. So you've got things like Alan Moore. League of Gentlemen. Equally, things like the Sherlock Holmes Guy Ritchie movie.
that's very steampunk.
Because the thing which I have issues with, certain people, I've been on panels where they say, oh yeah, Sherlock Holmes is steampunk, or Jules Verne's steampunk, or H.G. Wells. It's like, no, they're not. Sherlock Holmes is detective mysteries, and then you've got proto-science fiction, scientific romances. Yes, they've informed it, but like I say, I think you could put an H.G. Wells character, or even the man himself, in a steampunk book. And I've certainly borrowed things from his books. I've got Cavorite in mind. It's a great way to explain why you've got space travel with these vast ships and things. But yeah, so there's been various sort of stepping stones and just that kind of vibe. And it's like you say, it's gradually worked its way through. And what I hadn't realised, because I came to it purely from literature and comics and a bit of film, is the number of people who come to it purely through the costume, through the crafting, and even an element of actually going back to the more positive side, we say, Victorian values, because they do feel that the real world is people forgotten what good manners are and etiquette and dressing for dinner, and it's just wanting to better themselves. And it's interesting having been to things like Weekend at the Asylum where the book's are only one small part of it, and actually people are mainly there because it's such a sociable, welcoming group, I think, at the end of the day.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we had a Victorian garden tea party at ours before we moved from the old house, didn't we?
We did indeed, yeah.
Afternoon tea. It's lovely. It's that kind of thing. I'm very much a fan of it because it is very sociable and it's very polite, and I very much like that kind of thing.
It's definitely a genre that I have to explore further. I think it's part of the subculture that I haven't really experienced to any great degree.
There's an article in an SFX fantasy special which had kind of subgenres of fantasy, and in that they included steampunk, which is always branded as a subgenre of science fiction. But I'm inclined to agree that it is certainly what I've written in my own work. It's fantasy because for me, okay, I've said there's no supernatural, but the mad science is the magic. It's the plot device that lets things happen, where you can use a bit of technical babbling. You don't have to really explain how this works, but it lets you do cool things.
Yeah, because I always think the Final Fantasy games fall fairly squarely into a steampunk genre, but again, they always tend to have that kind of mystical or spiritual thing in there, as well as the kind of the airships and things like that.
I quite like to call it science fantasy.
Yeah.
My publisher says, no, you write science fiction, but
Science fantasy works.
Yeah.
It rings well with me. That actually is sort of thing I was actually going to bring up, was something, if out of the things that you've written in that kind of genre, what would you actually like to see come to fruition in reality from those?
Oh, wow. Okay.
Apart from robot parrots.
Yes.
They're just cool, full stop.
And they are real, because I
Yes.
have a robot
Indeed.
parrot. Yes. I should have brought it along.
Yeah, that's great. Megan had great fun playing with that.
Yeah. Goodness me. Well, I've got people living under the sea and on the moon, so space travel. Quite like the idea of a few robot butlers around the place. I think it could be quite entertaining. That's a good question.
It's almost like the replicator thing you'd like to see, from Star Trek. You'd love to see the replicator work, and we were talking about the 3D
3D
printers.
printers.
It's out now. They're actually printing like meat proteins and stuff from it.
I hadn't heard that.
Oh, okay, yeah, it's in one of our previous shows.
Ones,
Yes,
so seriously nerdy.
That's
on
why
that one.
it's a continuation through
Yeah.
that sort of podcast. And I thought I wanted to throw that one at you, going like, well, what would you actually from anything?
I suppose
that you
some of it
brought up?
is not new technologies. It's me trying to put a steampunk spin on things. Because, for example, my character has a mobile phone, but it's never called that. It's his personal communicator, and it's teak, and it's brass, and it's got enamel keys. But the way he uses it is blatantly a mobile phone, because it means I have then the option of he can just contact people wherever he is, or you hope he can.
Do you deal with AI at all?
Yes, I've got in the second book, Leviathan Rising, there is this submersible liner called the Neptune, and it has its own computer, which is a Turing analytical engine. So it implies that because one of the points is that Babbage's analytical engine worked, which is obviously quite staple for a lot of steampunk stuff. But then the idea that people like Turing would then carry on that work. So that is definitely described as an AI, and I have plans for future books to develop that more.
Brilliant.
Because I always thought that would be a really good concept within steampunk, and I haven't seen anybody really tackling it, because I'm very much into my AI. That's what I'm doing in my computing degree and stuff at the moment.
And I do have a bit where somebody basically, because it doesn't spoil the book, but they sabotage a ship, and they do it by basically attacking the computer, and they're saying, is it time to die? Will it hurt? And so the computer is obviously gone beyond its programming to have these existential concerns.
Cool.
Yes.
It's always been a recurring theme in a lot of my games, is I'll tend to have an AI there in some way, shape or form. I do like them.
But yes, I suppose to any technology that doesn't exist yet, that's a tricky one.
That you've sort of thought into fruition.
Going to have to edit out a lot of silence now.
That's fine.
That's fine.
I think what else there is, because I'd like to see a steampunk King Kong, because that's in the latest book. Obviously not really.
Sounds pretty cool.
Because it doesn't end well for anybody. That's the thing. It's like my hero goes through all sorts of things that I wouldn't want to do at all, and I'm quite happy just to sit down and watch telly. I don't go mountain biking or anything adventurous at all. So
the Pacific
my character
Rim
goes
coming
through.
soon, which is almost your steampunk King Kong.
It is. Well, steampunk Godzilla, really.
That looks like fun.
It does look like fun. I'm looking forward to that.
I have got time travel in there as well.
Did you ask James Cameron about time travel?
I didn't. And I did, once I dealt with it, I kind of made sure that it was out of the story completely, that it couldn't be repeated. It just gets too complicated. Although, as somebody has pointed out, it'll spoil the end of one of the books, but how are you going to go back and explain how they didn't know about this beforehand? So we'll wait and see.
Just Bill and Ted it.
That's it. That's what I should do. I should have somebody called Professor MacGuffin who comes on and gives some... I'm writing that down as well. Professor MacGuffin can explain it away for me. Or it could be that he just wasn't interested. It's like, because it's something that happens...
At his Deus Ex Machina.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There we go. But there's a whole comic strip in that.
There is,
yeah. should copyright this. Sorry, bear with me.
Right, we can always collaborate on a think tank with this sort of thing. Absolutely no problem with that.
That'd be brilliant, couldn't you? You could take all the whole paradoxes and things.
You could just do a real proper time travel spoof. Just spoof the entire time travel genre.
At some point, you've got to have people going back and either becoming the Adam and Eve, or they're like the survivors of the flood or something.
Yeah.
That's been done so many times, hasn't it? One was done, I saw with, I think in 2000 AD, Future Shock with Hitler and Eva Braun are the ones who become Adam and Eve.
Nice.
Yes, I've heard that.
Future Shock, I think I always remember the most is the one about, it was a musical single that was actually a mind control device.
Oh yeah, that was not that long ago, I think that was. No. The thing I always find about Future Shocks is they're really shocking. That's a bit controversial. I mean, I have to claim I've only attempted to write one a couple of times and it didn't get anywhere, so... yeah, tricky business.
Did you see the Dread film?
I did. I did. I was really annoyed with myself because I was so looking forward to it, and I went to see some late showing at a local cinema, sat down in the warm, and I fell asleep for the last 10 minutes. So I stuck with it, and the denouement, it's like, oh, bugger.
Yeah.
But I liked it. I mean, it was a reinvention for the cinema. So
Did
it
you watch
wasn't
it in 3D? Or?
I did.
Yeah.
So it wasn't completely true to the comic, but I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I like that things like Batman can still be Batman, but exist like Nolan's movies are very different from like the Arkhamverse video games, which again are very different from Frank Miller, the comic, and yet they're all Batman and they're all great. So I didn't have a problem with that because I thought, they tried to almost, in some ways, stick closer to the comic book in terms of look with the Stallone Dread movie, which it's a weird one because it gets all sorts of great reviews as a sci-fi movie, but if you know anything about Dread at all, it just jars in so many ways. I mean, I think there's a brilliant Mean Machine. He's one of the best realised things in it, but everything else is just a mess. So I think it stayed much truer to the ethos of Dread. It actually made him much nicer, I thought.
It did. It kind of
more humanised him. But the fact that you've got the concept of the blocks and the sort of the anarchy. So as a tone, I thought it was very good. And the way they used the slow-mo and the 3D, I thought actually...
The cinematography with the 3D I thought was stunning.
And so many films, they say now, must see it in 3D, and it's like, really? And some of the time I can't even tell it's 3D anymore. Maybe I need new glasses.
But Dread, I think it did. I think the 3D brought a whole extra dimension to that film that I think you would lose if you didn't see it in 3D.
Yeah.
Because some of those shots of just the falling rain and the glass and everything as it's coming towards you were just stunning.
Didn't it win an award for 3D at the Empires?
Yeah.
I'm very disappointed there isn't a sequel, because I know there's been an online...
There's a petition to get one made, yeah.
Some producer recently, I think, said today that there won't be a sequel, but they were talking about doing a small screen version or a short film or something of it.
Well, I know that one of my friends, Damo's involved in a Dread kind of spin-off fan film.
Because I'd love to see... Because obviously everybody keeps saying, well, if it goes well, then we'll do Death. Which would be cool.
I would love that.
But part of me thinks, in one way, how would you do Judge Death even, in that kind of the setting that they created for Dread. But equally, if they did that well, it could be the darkest horror movie and the most effective if it was done as opposed to kind of like a Marvel superhero movie.
Yeah, but...
So less of a comic book movie and more of a out-and-out thriller horror thing.
But then the only thing that's stopping those sort of films being made nowadays is ratings.
Yeah.
To get a film like that, you couldn't push for a 12A rating. It would have to go.
But that was the thing, wasn't it? Dread wasn't. They went for that.
No, they went straight for the 18 rating on Dread.
And it was good because it felt right. It wasn't one of these things. So many things where they say they make something more adult. I kind of feel it's not adult at all. You've got, for example, some young adult novels. They're branded as this thing. And people, actually, when you're an adult, unless you want to set out and read erotica, a lot of the ins and outs of sex aren't of particular interest. It might be, it happens in the story, but it's not the be-all and end-all. It's not like a Gilly Cooper book, which all the teenage girls read. Whereas a lot more young adult novels have a lot more sex in them. And equally, it's like when they did Torchwood, which is grown-up Doctor Who, and I thought it's very immature Doctor Who. Because it's like, let's have sex and drugs because we can. It was like Doctor Who written by 15-year-olds.
That's exactly the conversation that me and Emma and Ady have had about Torchwood, is that it was essentially that the storylines were at exactly the same level as Doctor Who, but they just had the occasional bit of swearing and sex in it. And well, we felt it was kind of a very childish approach to what was supposed to be an adult show.
Whereas with Dread, I thought that was appropriate because of the subject matter they covered. It's like, they are judge, jury and executioner. And there are gangs, and this is how people are violent, and this is how they control others.
It felt like a bit of a weird crossbreed between Die Hard and Rush Hour, though.
Yes.
In the Dread universe.
But I thought Carl Urban was very good.
He was stunningly good at it, He managed to get the inverted smile correct.
Yes.
Which is brilliant. Because I always saw that in the comics and was just like, how can you do that with your face? How can you make your lips turn down? I just can't do it at all. It's brilliant. But yeah, very, very well done film. Hey, on the subject of films, you have to chip in with your 5 films for our list.
Okay.
So it's just something that we do. We've been. We came up with it in one podcast, and we all threw our 5 films in the mix of what films we think everybody should see. Can we remember what each of them is? I think mine. Can you remember them?
I can remember I had Empire Records, I had Heathers, I had Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure, I think I had... Did I put Pump Up? I didn't put Pump Up the Volume on there.
No, you didn't.
No, it was mentioned.
But I was going to.
It was mentioned. Yeah, I think I went for Empire Strikes Back, Blade Runner.
I'm going to just pull up the list here because I will never remember them otherwise.
God, what was mine? Crow, Lost Boys. Breakfast Club, I think, was one of them. Young Guns 2.
Yes, Young Guns 2 you definitely came up with.
This is amazing because obviously I had a little warning about this, and I was trying to make a list, and Bill and Ted's been mentioned already before this evening, and that was the second one I wrote down. And I don't know where that came from because I haven't seen it in years, but it's just because it is an out-and-out spoof, and it is like, this is actually all that's wrong, potentially with time travel, and we'll embrace that and make it brilliant. And it just has some of the best lines of the whole... like with their graduation thing at the end, and about wanting to analyse... is it Bill? I can't remember which one it is now. Bill or Ted. But going, don't worry, I've got this Oedipal complex.
It's Ted.
Some great lines in it.
It's
Bill before he speaks.
It's Bill who has it though. Bill S. Preston Esquire.
That's it. It's Missy.
Missy.
Sorry, Mom.
So Bill and Ted's on your list.
Bill and Ted. I had Moon.
Moon is a fantastic film. Whenever anyone, and I dislike Prometheus immensely, tagged Prometheus as being intelligent science fiction, I give them a slap and I say, no, Moon is intelligent science fiction.
Moon is brilliant.
Moon and Primer. If you haven't seen Primer,
I haven't seen that one.
That is fantastic.
Primer's amazing. That's a time travel movie done very well, but with a lot of nigh on impenetrable science babble at the start.
Because Prometheus didn't even cross my mind, because... What I want to see, so I'm getting distracted now, I want to see the movie of the trailer for Prometheus. The one which has Charlie Theron going, each king has his time, and all the chairs and all the whoop, whoop. It's like, that's the movie I want to see, and that was not the movie that was made. And like you say, the whole intelligence is just so dumb. It's beautiful to look at, apart from you can't escape from the fact you've got this donut-shaped or crescent-shaped thing spinning around. Why don't you run right? Anyway, there's just so many things. Hello, we're professionals, we've gone into space. Oh, I'll just take my helmet off. What? Anyway, I'm sure I'm preaching to the converted.
Oh, absolutely.
So Moon, definitely. And then
Brendan goes to sleep at night stabbing the DVD.
I'm trying to think, what was the computer in that called? I've forgotten now. That's awful.
Well, it was
Kevin
Mother.
Spacey. In Moon.
In Moon. Sorry.
Kevin Spacey was...
I can't remember.
I've forgotten that.
Was it...
Seen Moon once.
I want to say Clint.
I've forgotten. But that's so sinister, and to begin with, you think, and it is kind of the bastard child of Hal. But it isn't. So equally on that, I'd say 2001 purely for the Hal sequence.
For sure.
Because it is a weird mix of a film, but I remember seeing it as a child and just being blown away by the fact it started off with apes.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then you've got the guys on the moon and the whole...
The monolith.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you have this really sinister bit, and space is silent, and it's very... And then the whole bizarre Star Child stuff. But I just blew my mind.
Did you ever watch the sequel?
Yes, I did.
I really
2010.
enjoyed the sequel as well.
Yep. And I, off the back of that, I read 3001 as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was obsessed with those for a while. Yep, so Moon, Bill and Ted, Monsters. Gareth Edwards.
No.
On that one.
Ah.
You have.
Well, he's the man who's helming the new Godzilla movie. And it's
All
off
right.
the back of Monsters. Monsters he did on a micro budget.
I know.
And
I know. I've heard
it's
of the film,
incredible.
I've not seen
I
it.
think it was literally 3 of them. He basically filmed everything. Oh, no, sorry. It was him filming. There were a couple of producers behind it as well, and there were the 2 actors. And the only actual actors in the movie are the couple in the story. And they were a real couple in life, and they're now married. But it was just incredible. And when you watch the makeup, you cannot believe that the people who feature in the story aren't professional actors. But he filmed everything sort of on the fly, on the streets, and he did all the CGI himself. And it is so... It's basically a fantastic love story. But it's a really moving, intense film. And he filmed it out in Mexican places, and the editor was cutting it with him. And bizarrely, I met the editor at Comic-Con. At Kapow last year and got chatting to him, and it was just incredible. But you must watch it.
Okay,
it's
that's
just,
definitely
That's
what I
one
have
for
to
the list,
watch.
definitely
Yeah.
to watch, but
it's just so incredible, the scale and what's in that movie and just the detail of it, because the idea, in case as you don't know, is that basically there's been an alien invasion, but it's more like an infestation,
biohazard,
like a biohazard.
yes.
So you've basically got this vast swathes of the Mexican jungle between there and the States is quarantined. So everywhere they go, there's posters saying, "Wear your gas mask. Don't go in this
because I
area."
think
The
the
last
poster for the
ferry's
film
here.
is like the 2 of them stood on and like a desert thing, and he's
Yeah.
got the biohazard symbol.
That's right.
I have read about
yeah,
it and
yeah.
seen adverts for it.
So
Now that you say it like that,
I
I'm
think
going,
I'm
yes,
trying to remember that. I think the
I've not
life
seen
ones are
that.
meant to come like from meteorites, so you're not quite sure how intelligent, but it's just incredible. And
Oh, right.
I don't want to spoil the story too, but yeah, he's this guy, this photographer who there's this sort of sport rich girl has to get back to the States, and he then sort of becomes his duty to get her back there from his boss is her dad, but it's just it's amazing.
I'll check it out.
Yeah, I think that's in the synopsis of it anyway on IMDb.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, Monster, that's 3. No, 4, isn't it? 2001. Then I was having an iron because I thought Avengers, Iron Man, but I actually think I've got to pick a comic book film, and I'll say Batman Begins. Because
Cool.
I think
Yeah.
that the way to try and make it as real and as gritty as possible, I think, is done most effectively in that one. And just because it had things like Scarecrow,
I
who's
love
actually
Cillian Murphy
scary.
in that film.
And,
He's so good.
You can believe that with the League of Shadows and the fact they've tried to bring down Gotham and the crime lords making much more of that rather than just the supervillains. And I thought it's so powerfully done, and you've got so much in there with Arkham and...
Yeah, it's an excellent movie.
It's an excellent shout. So that drawing, I have our lists here.
If you wanted them.
Yeah. So Ady, your list was Lost Boys, The Crow, Weird Science, Breakfast Club, and Young Guns 2. Spindles, you had The Empire Strikes Back, Blade Runner, Princess Bride, Chasing Amy, and Grosse Point Blank.
Oh, Grosse Point Blank, yeah.
I was Alien, Empire Records, Reality Bites, Heathers, and Bill and Ted.
See, you mentioned things like Lost Boys. I'd wondered about that one myself as well, and it's
It
just time and
It does. It does digress time, but for me, it was one of the most iconic films. It was a big influence on me, a big influence on my life of how I saw myself, and kind of in a way of fashion and getting into motorbikes and things like that as well. That was the background for me.
Have you seen? There's a YouTube mashup video where they have Keith Sutherland's character from Lost Boys and
Yes.
Stand By Me, suggesting that Stand By Me is the prequel to Lost Boys. So it's quite long. It's possibly overlong, but it's very clever.
Very cool.
Because I think they're both called David, or at least he's David, isn't he, in the Lost
Yeah.
Boys?
Yeah.
But it's very cleverly done, suggesting that that's who he was in the 50s and things, and then became.
I thought you meant the meme of.
Isn't Feldman in both of those as well?
I don't think Feldman's in.
Was it?
It's Corey.
Yes.
Oh, which is which? Corey Haim. Who's the one who? One divorced his parents and one committed suicide.
That's right.
and they're both in Lost Boys.
Yeah.
Because one is one of the Frog Brothers. Is
Yes,
it
Corey Feldman's the Frog Brother.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, he's in Stand By Me.
Yes, he is.
Yeah. And Will Wheaton.
And Jerry O'Connell.
As well. Yes, and Jerry
In
O'Connell.
his,
Yes.
Yeah, chubby days.
And River Phoenix.
Yes.
River Phoenix, yes, he was. Yeah.
It's interesting. Yeah, like a lot of yours quite retro and from possibly formative times. And I've realised
Yes.
I've picked two. Well, one was when I was a student. One was when I was a child. And the other three are all relatively recent.
Yeah. Well, no, there's nothing wrong
Particularly
with that
Moon
at
and
all.
It's like
Monsters.
one that I actually mentioned after the show. I
Was,
can't believe
Scanner
Darkly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I've never seen that.
How?
It's really good. Yeah, really good. I don't think it's come up at all yet, is The Matrix.
Yeah, that's really quite...
That's
Weird.
interesting, isn't it? Because I
Yeah.
think it is how much baggage sequels, diminishing returns can have an effect on things.
And when you were speaking about Lost Boys giving you the thing about motorbikes and everything, I just why didn't I say Hackers? Because Hackers was like one of the major influences of my entire life. So yeah.
But we were put on the spot.
Yeah.
That was the point.
Indeed.
Because I'm looking at my list and wondering where Dazed and Confused has gone.
Fair play.
Have you seen Limitless?
I have. Yeah, that's a fantastic film.
Yeah,
Bradley
'cause
Cooper.
That was a lot better than I was expecting. It
Yeah.
wasn't what I was expecting, but I guess it struck a chord because it's all about this struggling novelist and trying to.
I haven't
Real
seen it.
quickly.
It's a good film.
Bradley...
It goes off in such a weird direction, but it's.
But it's a sci-fi. And
Yeah.
It's quite interesting. It's about taking a drug that makes you have no limits.
It's that sort of question you have to be
intelligence and
asked,
stuff.
isn't it? Where, if you could give half of what you own now to have a pill with no side effects where you didn't have to sleep, would you give it up? Because the idea of what else you could do. But it kind of unlocks all the potential of the brain, or at least that kind of cod science where it says you only use whatever percent, which is probably not true. But, and then what you can do, and the idea is that anything you've seen is actually there somewhere that you can, but you can't normally access it, and it untaps all that. But then it goes off in such interesting directions.
I think Bradley Cooper just put me off. I saw the trailers and I liked the idea of the story, but...
Yeah, I didn't go to the cinema to see it, but
Bradley
it was on TV
Cooper.
and I
I watched it on
thought...
Sky not that long ago.
Because that's kind of when NerdVsWorld started, many, many years ago. It started with me needing a place to vent about slights I saw to the nerd culture, and the one that set it off, the one that tipped me over the edge and it was like, I can't take this anymore, I have to write something, was when they were looking at remaking The Crow and casting Bradley Cooper in the Eric Draven role. And I was just like, enough is enough, internet.
Stop right there.
Yeah, so that's how NerdVsWorld got started. It was essentially me just going, no.
It's very similar to how we started with the Eclectic Podcast. Was just we just wanted some way of venting about the things that really irked us.
Yeah, and putting things across that we had an actual genuine enthusiasm for and an interest in.
Well, I think
musically or
that's certainly how NerdVsWorld developed. It was about the enthusiasm. It was about giving an opinion.
sort of brings us back to you, Jonathan. If it'd be that one of the things of you coming on the show as well is because we all have we've all looked at some of the stuff that you've done and looked at your Kickstarter, and I certainly have looked at your back catalogue and some of the things that you've got coming out this year, and I've gone, well, yeah, I'd really like to read some of that stuff, and it's great. So
you tick a lot of the boxes of the stuff that they do. You do game books, you do mobile gaming, you do
Warhammer.
Also, that's the thing. You've written in 3 brilliant universes. You've written in the Doctor Who universe, you've written in the Games Workshop universe, and you've written in the Star Wars universe as well, haven't you?
I have, yeah. It wasn't a lot, but I have done 2 Star Wars books. I mean, they're based on the Clone Wars, and they're very much directed at kids. But yeah, I did get to basically rewrite the whole battle above the Sarlacc in Return of the Jedi. So, in a game book format with Asajj Ventress.
Cool.
I've been mainlining the Clone Wars cartoon series at the moment. I am now into season 4. It's taken
awesome,
about...
but it's been cancelled.
Yeah.
It's been cancelled on Cartoon Network.
Okay.
What they've said is that they're not producing any more episodes for the Cartoon Network, but they have said that they have more stories to tell. Now, they're already up to episode 20, I think, of season 5, so it's...
Oh, goodness. I'm well behind, but the ones I've seen I've loved, yeah.
So they're going to have to go some to try and cram all those stories into the last bit of season 5. So I'm imagining another season, but not on Cartoon Network.
Yeah, that was a weird one, that project, but I got to indulge myself, so I got to put in the I should know this now, the Dianoga, the sort of garbage squid.
The
that
garbage
appears and
squid
stuff.
from
So
Star
I got
Wars.
to put that in. So it's kind of like all the bits I liked, I cherry picked. And I said, yeah, fine. Yeah, and I've now done. I suppose you could argue fighting fantasy as a universe.
Yeah.
Particularly if it's set within
Yes.
Alancia and Old World and places like Titan. Doctor Who, Star Wars, Warhammer, and 40k. I've also written Judge Dredd.
Wow.
Which I snuck in through the back door because the magazine has started doing text stories. And I basically sent an email to Matt Smith, editor, Tharg, saying, can I contribute one? And I thought, the usual rule of, you send in a few ideas, and so to begin with, they'll get rejected. Maybe you send in 3 ideas and one will be accepted. And I pitched this idea and he accepted it straight away, and I sent in the story and he accepted it straight off.
Oh, brilliant.
So technically I've written a Judge Dredd story, but it's not a comic strip. So people I know wait years and years to write Dredd. I kind of got to sneak in.
Nice.
But that was an idea I'd had ages ago, just that the name was Simple Simon, but spelt PSI.
Yeah.
So I managed to use that. I've done Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Sonic the Hedgehog. Trying to think what else. I realise some of those possibly aren't quite universes in the same way.
Well, I think they are.
TMNT certainly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, my most recent tie-in stuff is Moshi Monsters, the Moshi-verse.
Awesome.
Is there any universe you'd like to write in?
I'd love to write Batman in some format or other. But to be honest, what I'd love to do is write a Batman gamebook. And particularly the Arkhamverse setting for it.
Okay.
Something like that would just be brilliant. I just love the darkness of it. I love the insanity, the madness, the sort of studies of that. And I think the villains in that, certainly the ones where people like the Joker, there are no superpowers. He's just completely nuts, and you can't predict what he's going to do. And that sort of symbiotic relationship. And then to go the other way, where you have got the weird science fiction element of like Clayface, particularly in the latest iteration, I think that's awesome and creepy and dark and brilliant. So that's one I definitely love to do.
I think Joker's got even creepier.
Yeah.
Have you been reading any of the New 52?
I haven't,
stuff?
no. I mean, a lot of it's weird because comics, I know a bit about sort of most of it, and I know enough certainly to impress my son at the moment. But he'll probably take over on that. Like I like Spider-Man, so I'll go and see all the movies, but I'm not a massive Marvel comic person. I'm probably more DC in tone, but then equally I have issues with Superman. And I think that must be a nightmare to write because it's like he can do everything. And I think it was Grant Morrison who said the only way you can attack him is by love, because the fact that he is almost this perfect, he doesn't want to hurt anybody.
Yeah.
Whereas somebody like Batman, basically Batman and the Joker, if you keep within their own universe, they're just people. Okay, one's incredibly fit and the best detective ever, and Mr. Martial Arts, and billionaire playboy, and the rest of it, like Tony Stark's gag in the Avengers, and one's completely nuts and prepared to do anything. But at the end of the day, they're people, and they're the yin and the yang, and that's just... I'm not quite sure sometimes which is which.
And they're not either. I think that point's made in Killing Joke.
Well, isn't it in Frank Miller's Batman? No, Dark Knight Returns is the whole idea that Batman's this sick thug who will beat people in his life but won't kill them. But he just enjoys the sort of violence of... I will beat you to death, I'll break all your bones, you'll get better, you'll break out, and I'll do it again. One I wouldn't want to write in at all is Star Trek. And although I've watched various series and really enjoyed them, and I enjoy the new reboots and all the rest of the movies, but I think it's just something that's too clean about the Federation. And it's just... I mean, it's weird because I suppose it is more optimistic science fiction, whereas a lot at the moment these days is very dystopian.
Yeah.
Yes.
But that's what I find more interesting.
The best science fiction's always been dystopian.
It's been dystopian since the 1890s.
Well, yeah. But for me, it's that kind of... Maybe it's because I'm very fortunate in that my home life is very stable. I had a very stable upbringing, married, children, everything's hunky-dory. So then what's interesting is the opposite of that. Whereas possibly if somebody's come from a background where they've got a horrible life, you can understand why you want to imagine things could be better. But it's that whole, again, the yin and yang, because I've had this discussion with people before. It's always quite well documented the number of comedians who are manic depressive or have some sort of very grumpy and miserable in real life. Yeah. And have, since doing more and more writing, met more and more writers. Horror writers are some of the funniest, most pleasant people I've ever met. And it is that, because that's the twist. It's like they're not like that in real life. So I guess it's the studying of the other. Yeah.
I think it's the utopian versus dystopian thing that makes me pick Star Wars in the old Star Trek Star Wars debate. Because I love both. If I was put on the spot, I think I like the dirty feel of Star Wars
dirty,
more.
lived-in universe.
Yeah, also one of the aspects of it is the sort of the spiritual side. If you pretend that the prequels never happened,
That's very easy to do.
Yeah. It's,
I spend my life trying to convince myself of that.
it's not that dissimilar to Warhammer 40k,
Yeah.
in that there's an element of, there's a certain medievalism about it.
Yeah.
Because, we have got these almost tech that you don't need to know how, or it's like, say it's so old and dirty, it's just, we don't necessarily have to know how it worked. And equally the Force, when it's not explained, is a much more powerful tool.
It is.
And that's and just such a range of, you've got Coruscant where it's all very high tech, but you've equally got people living on Tatooine in mud huts effectively.
Yeah, and if you go into the underworld of Coruscant, you're still living in a
Coruscant,
clan.
yeah.
That sort of stratified society.
Yeah,
Cool.
yeah.
Well, I think we're about ready to wrap up for this week.
I think we are. That's kind of 20 to 10.
Wow. So, yes, all that remains is to thank you very much for coming along, John. And,
Well, thank you very much for having me. It's been great.
People, get on and fund the Kickstarter because I want my books.
We'll put the links in the description.
We will indeed.
Thank you.
Yeah. So, should we get John to do the sign off, or do you want to do it?
I usually do the Bill and Ted sign off, so it is take care and be excellent to each other.
Okay.
So
if we do, we just go around saying who we are, and then just if you want to finish on that, that'll be cool.
okay, so thank you for listening. Oh, before we sign off, if you're in Worcester on the 30th of March, come along to Tabletop Day. The Facebook event will be in the show notes as well. So sign up. It's completely free. Come play some board games with us.
Go along and play board games.
Yeah. Anyway, thank you for listening. Until next time, I've been Brendan.
I've been Spindles.
And I've been Ady.
And I've been Jonathan Green. And take care and be excellent to each other.